Good morning and welcome to Salford City Council Planning Panel. My name is Councillor Hamilton and I am the Chair of the Planning Panel. Given the pandemic, only elected members need to be physically present in meetings to make decisions, and so officers of the Council can join meetings remotely. The planning officers presenting items to this agenda will be doing so remotely. We do have 3 officers in the room. We have our clerk, Miss Edwards, who's the clerk of the panel. We have Mr. Hodgson, who's the head of, or the lead for development management. And we have Mr. Shuttleworth to my right, who's the lead officer for planning policy in the city. They will be giving advice to the panel also, but they will be in physical presence. This meeting will also be streamed live, and if you do intend to photograph or film the meeting, then my only ask is for you not to stop other members of the public from speaking freely. That's all I ask. Further, my last request is of your good selves is for you to please respect and adhere to the COVID-safe protocols of this building. Thank you. Okay, over to the order of business. First, the officers will present their submission to the panel. Second, any registered objectors will be invited to speak. Third, any registered applicants agents will be invited to speak. Fourth, any ward councillors or MPs representatives will be invited to speak. I'll allow 10 minutes for both sides, so if there's 2 speakers, please divide that to 5 minutes each, and if there are 3, please divide again. Ward councillors, MPs representatives will get 5 minutes each. After then, I'll close from your good selves and pass over to the panel for debate, which will focus solely on material planning grounds against the aims of the City Council's local and the government's national planning policies. Finally, we'll make a decision made on those material planning grounds by inviting if there is a motion contrary to officer's recommendation, then before any vote is taken, a senior officer will be asked to advise the panel of the merits of that motion. The Chair will vote alongside of all the other members of the panel. In the event of a tie, either Chair will have a further casting vote to decide the application. I do hope that's clear. Ladies and gentlemen, decisions will be made today. Those decisions may or may not please everybody, but I'd like to think that when everyone will be leaving the building, that they will be leaving satisfied that they had a fair and equal hearing throughout the proceedings. Thank you. Okay, members, well, should we take our apologies first, members? Miss Edwards, could we have the apologies, please?
Yes, Chair. Apologies have been received from councillors Bob Clark, Karen Rio, Sophia Linden and Phil Tresidder.
Thank you. And then could you just read out who's in attendance today?
Yes, Chair. The councillors in attendance are councillors Tanya Birch, Phil Cusack, Jim Dawson, Jane Hamilton, Mike McCusker, Neil Reynolds, Peter Taylor, John Warmishan and yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Edwards. Members, are you happy to include parts 1 and 2 of the agenda? No problem, thank you. And then, members, are there any declarations of interest? I'll take Councillor Birch first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to declare an interest for item to do with the Audacious Church. I'm a member of the congregation and I will leave when it's been dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor Hamilton? You're talking as a ward councillor, aren't you, to item 5B? No problem. And Councillor Cusack?
I'd like it noted, Chair, that there is an item that's been passed under delegated powers for the University of Salford, and I'm a council member of the University of Salford.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Item 6. Thank you so much. Okay, members, are you happy to approve the minutes? I think for just clarity, Councillor Dawson, just for clarity, that for the A4 Viva application, which is 5C, that you were a previous board member, but you're no longer a board member. From the end of May this year. That's okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Councillor McCusker, I had to talk over you. Are you happy to approve the minutes for the previous meeting?
I am.
Okay. Fabulous. Thank you. Is anyone else? Anyone else? 1 second. Oh, fabulous. We've got 2 seconds. Great. Okay. Members, moving right on to planning applications. This is item 5A, which is page 15 to 43 on the main agenda, and it's the amendment sheet is page 6. Miss Stewart is the presenting officer. Miss Stewart, could you move your slide forward and back one, just to make sure it's working?
Is that working, Chair?
Yeah, it's just gone forward and it's just gone back. But I can hear you good self.
I think there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, no problem. You have the floor, Miss Stewart. Over to you good self.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to a site at Mocker Parade in Low Broughton and seeks permission for the demolition of the existing buildings on site and the erection of a new little food store with associated car parking and landscaping. Excuse me. This slide shows the application site outlined in red. The site forms part of the wider Mocker Parade neighbourhood centre and is bounded to the east by Great Clue Street, with the former Victoria Theatre, which is Grade 2 listed beyond. To the south of the site is Low Broughton Road, with an area of grass and paths here, with the River well beyond. To the north and west of the site is Sussex Street, excuse me, with the residential properties further beyond. Members will recall the area here to the southeast corner of the site, which also forms part of the wider Mocker Parade neighbourhood centre and has recently been granted permission for the demolition of the existing single-storey food bank and erection of a community health centre with commercial units to ground floor and associated car parking and landscaping. Here are some site photographs showing the site and the existing buildings which are to be demolished. We've got some further site photos of the buildings within the application site, and this one also shows the food store to be demolished on the adjacent site. A rectangular building is proposed. The building will be set back from, but would run parallel with Sussex Street to the north. It will be set back from Great Clue Street here, behind an area of proposed car parking, and would also be set well back from Low Broughton Road to the south, behind the proposed flood basin and an area of further car parking. The proposed site plan takes account of the adjacent health centre development, which can be seen outlined in black and white here, and includes the construction of a new access point off Low Broughton Road here, which once implemented will serve the little store as well as providing access into the car parking area for the health centre. This slide shows the floor plan of the store, which includes a warehouse delivery area, freezer room, manager's office and staff facilities, and the service yard area can be seen here, just sits to the northwestern corner of the site, with a dedicated access in off Sussex Street and also a dedicated egress onto Sussex Street as well. Here are the proposed northern and western elevations to Sussex Street. Through discussions with the applicants and agents, these have changed throughout the course of the application in order to improve the appearance of the building, whilst still having regard to the constraints of the site and the end users. So here are the proposed elevations to the southern car park area with Low Broughton Road beyond, and to the eastern car park area with Great Clue Street beyond. As can be seen here, the elevations now incorporate a grey brick plinth to the building, grey brick panels to all elevations to break up the white mass, and some high level glazing here and here to these elevations. Areas of car parking and landscaping are proposed across the remainder of the site, with final details to be secured through the recommended condition, as well as its intended function as a relief basin. The proposed flood basin will also provide further landscaping to the site to the benefit of the visual amenity of the site and the wider area. Changes have been requested to the landscape and public realm area here along the front of the site facing Great Clue Street. And whilst this has not been incorporated into the revised plans, a condition is recommended in this regard to ensure that the area is appropriately treated until such time as the cycleway, which you can just see here, is brought forward. The existing buildings on site are currently in a vacant and in a very poor state of repair. And whilst the site forms part of the Mocker Parade neighbourhood centre, it's acknowledged that the centre as a whole has provided very little in the way of facilities for the community for some time now. The areas surrounding the neighbourhood centre have seen significant regeneration over recent years, and this has further highlighted the poor state of repair of the site and the need for improved facilities to be provided. The site is accessible and the development is entirely appropriate in this location. It's siting within the neighbourhood centre, but will also allow for linked trips to other amenities as future aspirations for the wider parade are realised. The proposed development will assist further in the regeneration of the area and provide improved facilities for the community, whilst also having a positive impact on the character of the area. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set down in the report and subject to final approval of the emergency planning statement being delegated to the Assistant Director for Technical Services in consultation with the Chair of the panel, with the decision notice not to be issued until such time as the emergency planning statement is finalised and agreed, with the details of the agreed plan then to be secured by condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Okay, Ms Edwards, I don't believe we have any objectors who have registered to speak today for this application.
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. But we do have the applicant's agent, Mr. Harper. Are you speaking, sir? Oh, fabulous. Please take a seat. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Mr. Harper, will you need 10 minutes?
Hopefully not, no.
No. Well, I've read out that you've got 10 minutes, so I'll give you a shout at 9 minutes just to help time your good self. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Over
okay.
to your good self when you're ready. Cheers.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Harper of Rapley's Commercial Property and Planning Consultants, representing the applicant, Lidl. I'm pleased that following close consultation with council officers, the application is recommended for your approval this morning. As confirmed within the committee report, the application is recommended for approval on the following grounds. In regard to retail policy considerations, the proposal seeks to deliver a new supermarket in a defined retail centre. The principle of development is therefore acceptable. In regard to design, Lidl have worked hard with the council to bring forward a proposal which will contribute positively to the surrounding area and which will enhance the site. In regard to highways, the council's highways officers are fully satisfied that the proposal is acceptable in highways terms and provides appropriate parking and delivery provision. In regard to surrounding amenity, no objection has been raised by the Environmental Health Department, and officers consider that no significant harm will be caused to surrounding amenity through the loss of privacy, light or outlook, or from noise generated from either deliveries, customers or the store's operation. In respect of flood risk, the Environment Agency and the lead local flood authority support the proposals, which incorporates a flood storage basin. Therefore, due to the points raised, following careful consideration of the proposals, council officers consider the application to be fully acceptable. There are also a number of clear, tangible benefits of the scheme being proposed, which should be noted. Proposals will result in the redevelopment of Mocker Parade, which has been mooted for well over a decade. The development represents significant investment by Lidl, which will undoubtedly boost the local economy and will result in the creation of around 40 new jobs, which carry particular importance at this present time. The scheme will result in clear improvements to the visual appearance of the surrounding area through the delivery of an attractive and modern facility of high quality design and landscaping. Therefore, the proposed development fully accords with the key aims of national planning guidance, which promotes a presumption in favour of sustainable development and encourages bodies involved in granting planning permission to prioritise growth and jobs. To conclude, on the basis of both the scheme's clear policy compliance and the officer recommendation, we kindly request that members determine the application in accordance with the officer recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Thank you so much. There's no one else from the applicant's application team? No. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. And we have no ward members who registered to speak, members. So just before I open up the debate, members, it was mentioned by Ms Stewart that if this was approved, then we would be delegating the decision on the emergency planning statements to the Assistant Director for Planning and in consultation with the Chair of the panel. Are you happy with that? Is that okay? Yes. So we have that motion on the table. Okay. Should we open it up to members? Who's going first? Councillor Hamilton, anybody else? No.
Okay, thanks, Chair. This has been a long time coming. Mocker Parade is probably been the biggest eyesores in Salford second only to Briar Hill Court on top of Salford Shopping Centre. I agree wholeheartedly with Councillors Merry and Councillors Brabner and their comments within the report. Certainly this area of Lower Broughton is crying out for something like this. Mocker Parade, at the time in the 60s when it was built, was sort of state of the art and really good. But I think we've seen how it's become decrepit over the years. And I think the way that they've changed the design is now really suitable for the area. And I'm sure it will bring benefit to the area with employment and with footfall, etc. So I'd be quite happy to move this application.
Thank you, Councillor Womersham. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. I can only echo what Councillor Womersham had to say. I live not very far. I'm very well aware of the site. And not only will it look aesthetically so much better, the place that was famous for all the wrong reasons, has been famous for the wrong reasons for a long time, is going to get a new lease on life, and of course will contribute toward local economy, creating job opportunities. So I'd like to second the application.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Are there any other members? No, it was the Mocker Parade where I moved in. When I first moved to Salford in '97, I was in the pub opposite next to the bingo hall. And yes, it needed help then, did the Mocker Parade, and it really does need regeneration. And it does. And I echo your sentiments, and the regeneration is extremely necessary, and I can see what Lido have done here to come to this part of one of our most hard-hit neighbourhoods through poverty. And although I would have loved to see the design more green elements on it and be more eco-friendly, and also I'm always quite frustrated when I see what is essentially just a stock-build land. I know we've got a few brick facades, but in reality, we could do better here with design. But we do need our regeneration, and I think you guys are right. So I'm with you on this. Yeah. Is there any other members wishing to speak? No. Okay. It's been moved and seconded for approval with the condition on the emergency planning statement. I do remember that we won't be releasing any approval for this until the emergency planning statement is agreed. Flooding is one of the big main issues in that part. It floods the deepest, I think, in Salford on occasions. So we do need to make sure we've got that right and people are safe and that there is a proper plan in place for that. So that's been delegated to the Assistant Director in consultation with the Chair. So all in favour of the approval, please show. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much. Okay, moving right on, members. 5B, Councillor Birch. We do have tea and coffee, as you know. We won't charge you any extra for that. No problem. And Councillor Hamilton, any of the gold seats, they're all the same price, and I can see you already have your coffee with you. So, no problem. Okay, Mr. Williams, I do believe you're the presenting officer. Members, it's page 45 to 72 on the main report, and your amendment sheet's page 7. Mr. Williams, is that your front header sheet? Could you go forward a sheet and back a sheet?
Of course, Chair.
There you go, it's just done it and back. Yeah, no problem. And I did hear your good self, and over to you, good self. That's great, it's gone to maximisation. You have the floor, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is brought to you today relating to Audacious Church on Trinity Way in Salford. It's for the erection of a 5-storey extension and 2-storey extension to the existing steel portal frame building to provide new and enhanced facilities for the church, together with the construction of a multi-storey car park with associated access and landscaping works. The application site comprises a large steel-framed building occupied by the Audacious Church. The church is served by 2 car parks, one access via Berry Street and the other connecting to Trinity Way via a shared access road with the Diva Centre. The site is located to the east of Trinity Way and within the regional centre. Berry Street and the established grass verge, vegetated by shrubs and trees, forms the north and northeastern boundary, with the recently completed mixed-use development of Blackfriars lying beyond. The south and southeastern boundaries from the Diva Centre office park, which comprises a series of business units and commercial premises within the setting of the former Chester's Brewery, which is Grade 2 listed, as shown here. The access road to the Diva Centre forms the site's southwestern boundary, beyond which lies the Alto Apartments. To the northwest, again, lies Trinity Way and the low-rise residential apartments and terrace properties along Nathan Drive and Frederick Street. This three-dimensional aerial picture provides a clearer view of the application site within its immediate context, with the Diva Centre and the former Chester's Brewery to the top, the Alto Apartments to the right, Trinity Way the scene to the bottom, and the Blackfriars development to the left-hand side. These photographs show the application site from certain vantage points, the top being from Trinity Way, which is currently obscured by the constructor's compound on Berry William Street, and the bottom photograph here shows the application site looking northwest towards Trinity Way, with the Audacious Church to the right, existing surface car park shown in the centre, and the Alto Apartments to the left-hand side. In terms of background history, some members may recall a planning application brought before panel in 2017 for an ambitious scheme on the site, which sought to significantly increase the church's facilities and also provide a multi-storey car park. Unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic and budgetary constraints, the scheme could not be realised and the permission has since lapsed. In terms of the proposal now brought forward, mindful of the church's ongoing aspirations for the site and the surrounding area, this planning application now seeks the construction of a 5-storey link extension, seen in the centre here, with a multi-storey car park with public realm works to the site's frontage. The existing building will remain in situ, however painted black, with a small 2-storey extension along the northern elevation for storage purposes. Internally, this slide provides two of the floor plans within the 5-storey link extension. At ground floor level, shown to the top of the slide, the main entranceway is located on the left, which extends into a large shared space with a reception area. There's also a secondary entrance point to the rear to promote connectivity with the surrounding area itself. The floor plan at the bottom of this slide is at second floor level and is representative of the floor plans for the remaining floors, comprising general use rooms and office accommodation. The massing of the proposed development, as viewed within its immediate context, can be seen in this slide, with the Blackfriars development to the left and the Auto Apartments just to be seen on the right-hand side. As annotated, the area shaded in red at the bottom here denotes the extent of the 2017 permission and the similar massing envisaged, particularly to the link and the multi-storey car park. Similarly, this next slide provides a view from an alternative vantage point. Again, the top slide provides an illustration of the proposed development as viewed within its immediate context, whilst the bottom drawing seeks to show a comparison between the previously approved scheme and that now being brought forward before panel members. In terms of the site plan, this slide provides you with the proposed site plan with the Trinity Way junction to the top left of the image. We have William Street and Berry Street wrapping around the top and right-hand side of the application site. We also have Diva Centre lying just beyond the south here. And then we also have the main entrance point or shared access leading from Trinity Way down the bottom here to the entrance point into the multi-storey car park. Landscaping and public realm improvement works are envisaged predominantly along the site's frontage with William Street, with additional landscaping works and tree replacement scheme along the side. And again, planters along the footway at the bottom here, at the rear of the application site. To facilitate the proposed development, 16 trees are due to be removed. However, it has been agreed that those lost will be replaced on 2-for-1 basis, with full details and specifications requested under Condition 7 of the panel report. This slide provides some CGI imagery of the proposed development. The top left image is viewed from the public realm area to the front of the building. The top right shows the view from the side and rear. The bottom left is a view from the outer apartments. So this shows the side elevation of the multi-storey car park. And then the bottom right hand image here shows the scheme at pedestrian level along the rear elevation. In terms of materiality, the architect has chosen a complementary palette of materials comprising multi-red brick, a corten style cladding. We have a corten style wire meshing and a silver reflective panelling predominantly to the multi-storey car park. The exact specification has not been confirmed, and therefore it has been recommended that such details are to be submitted to the local planning authority through condition 3 of the panel report. In terms of car parking provision, the existing site has a combined capacity of 223 spaces with no dedicated motorcycle bays or bicycle stands. The proposal seeks the provision of 364 car park spaces to the multi-storey car park, of which 10 are disabled alongside 6 for EV charging, with a further retention of 45 car park spaces within the northern car park, 13 internal motorcycle bays within the multi-storey car park, and a separate ground floor access to a cycle storage area for the provision of 84 bicycle stands arranged over a two-tier system. Full details have been recommended through condition 11 of the panel report. Given the anticipated increase in vernacular activity associated with this development, the applicant has agreed the following highway improvement works. So this includes the installation of a pedestrian crossing facility at the access road approach to Trinity Way, extension of the right-hand turning lane on Trinity Way by approximately 15 to 20 metres, the relocation of the existing scoot loop on the access road. So this is the device used to measure traffic congestion, and also the provision of electric signage on the Trinity Way frontage itself to alert drivers when the multi-storey car park is full. And just to note, these measures are to be secured by way of Section 278 agreements, however, also have been recommended as part of a condition. So to just to finalise, the application is considered to represent an efficient use of land within this regional centre, which contributes towards the enhancement of an existing community facility. The design is integrative and locally distinctive, and will provide a public realm improvement and extensive landscaping works. It's considered that the proposal represents less than significant harm upon the designated heritage asset, whereby the public benefits of the scheme outweigh any of that resultant harm. It's not considered that there would be any detrimental impact upon the amenities of neighbouring properties, and there's no objection has been received from consultees subject to appropriately worded conditions. Just to note, 76 letters of representation have been received in response to the application's publicity. These do include those objecting and those letters of support. It's recommended that the application be recommended for approval, subject to the attachment of the conditions outlined within the panel report and the accompanying amendment report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Allen, I do believe you're a registered objector, and is Mr. Claridge in the room as well? No. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Allen, please come and sit on the gold seat. So, thanks, Luana. Okay, Mr. Claridge, I do not believe, oh sorry, Mr. Allen, isn't it? Yeah, Mr. Allen, I don't believe Mr. Claridge is here. Can I just confirm that?
I don't know who that is.
No. Okay, so Mr. Allen, you've got 10 minutes to speak, because I would have divided the time by 2, so it would have been 5 minutes each. So, Mr. Allen, yes, please do take your if you so wish, if that's okay. Mr. Allen, if you would just tell us where you reside, it just helps members with the context of your submission, and then it's your 10 minutes, and I'll give you a shout at 9. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So I live in the Alto Apartments just across the road, and obviously I'll be objecting. This should only take about 5 minutes, so it should be okay. My name is Joseph Allen, and my partner and I own an apartment in Alto facing the audacious church. I'm grateful that we managed to get 41 public objections on this application, and I'm here today to represent the residents of Alto Apartments in objecting to this planning application. I'm also grateful to be here with Councillor Jane Hamilton. It is humbling to not be here today alone. I do not want to be here, but I must. It seems like the battles never end in the Alto apartments. We have all had a hard few years. All of us here today have spent the last year trapped inside. You couldn't get a mortgage for these apartments if you wanted one due to the ongoing leasehold scandal. Our balconies are too flammable to be safe, and sadly this expansion is another thing we must find peace with. Many of us want to move elsewhere but cannot. Despite this, Audacious Church make it easy to love thy neighbour. I have only good things to say about the Audacious Church. Countless individuals see the current car park as a good place to drink, smoke, drift and litter. Audacious always makes sure that this space is clean and of little inconvenience to be near. After some brighter lights were installed in the Audacious car park, I had trouble sleeping. I reached out to the church and somebody came over to my flat. They recognised the impact and offered to pay for blackout curtains and a light box to keep our bedroom dark. When the church started their journey towards this expansion, they hosted a canapés evening and invited all Alto residents to voice any concerns. I felt very welcomed and very listened to. The concerns raised were taken into consideration and have almost all been resolved, so thank you very much for that. The church runs countless community events. They hosted my favourite vegan festival in their auditorium only a minute from my door. It's been a joy watching the church find creative and safe ways to host events as COVID-19 has forced them outside. The Audacious Church does so many wonderful things and cares about the local community. In my 6 years here, I've never had a complaint about the church until today. There are two parts of this project that simply do not align with everything else I've seen from the church. That this will be a long and disruptive build, and that this car park is a missed opportunity for a true community space. Our new shared neighbour, the Domus construction site, has shown how disruptive construction can be. They operate outside the usual construction hours and ignore complaints to their phone line. These construction hours offer little peace to those now working from home or to the many healthcare workers trying to recover from their night shifts. This small site leaves generators humming overnight, prompting residents to complain about sleep disruption. I worry about the disturbance a much larger and closer site could perform. I'm very grateful for the report provided by the Audacious Church, where they list the issues in our 41 objections and respond. The loss of amenities category fails to retort to the following: noise during construction works, increased noise at night, loud generators, 24-hour lighting of car park. With people working from home, this development will have mental health implications. Finally, we come to the car park. Since the redrawing of these plans, many new car parks have appeared within walking distance of the church. The new Bailey car park, for example, is a 5-minute walk from the Audacious Church, and I'm sure it will see much use from the congregation in the years the development takes place, giving further evidence that the car park is not needed. The new Bailey car park offers over 600 spaces, which are mostly unoccupied on Sundays. This is triple the size of the current Audacious car park. I would be very happy for the church to return to the drawing board one last time and meet the residents again part way. One solution I am open to would be an underground car park, or if that is impossible, a 2 to 3 story car park, with the top floor being a green space. This park should only be accessible from the Audacious building to reduce the criminal behaviour we currently see in the car park. There could be a cafe with working spaces here for these sweltering summers, and this would provide a source of income to the church. This green space could serve as a venue to continue the spectacular football games and barbecues I've seen the church hosting this year. Another use for this green space could be some community allotments, another great focal point for sustainable living, community events and charity work. We could have a Garden of Eden here in Salford, so close to home, rather than another car park. So I sit here asking the committee to reject this application, with the foresight that a few tweaks to this design will give us all a better community space. And I promise that with that rejection, next time we get here, I will be standing with the Audacious Church in full support. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Just check once more time. Mr. Claridge, are you in the room? No. Okay. Thanks, Luana. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to move on to the applicants and applicants' agents. I believe I've got Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele, are you speaking today? No problem. Thanks again, Luana. Mr. Steele, you have 10 minutes, just as the objective side do. I'll give you a shout at 9 minutes. Is that okay? Is it just one speaker, is there?
Yes.
No problem. Over to you, good self, whenever you're ready.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, councillors. My name is Mark Steele. I'm representing Audacious Church today. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and make a paper presentation a little bit more personal. From my background, we have had, as you know, a previous application done in 2017, which we were very thankful for. However, due to slight changes, the pandemic, etc., meant we were not able to fulfil on that. So what we've proposed today is a revised scheme, which is essentially a jigsaw piece to allow us to continue to start a phased development to one day reach using the site in its full capacity. By way of background, we've been on the site since 2011, and currently we're on 3 services just now every Sunday. When we arrived in 2011, we had approximately 500 members of the church. Right now, we're in excess of 5,000 people who would consider themselves this is their spiritual home. The building, as it is right now, if you're absolutely honest, is quite an ugly old retail unit, and as the years go by, continues to look more and more out of place and not a very great advert along one of the main thoroughfares of Salford. So what we're intending to do is to, in the best ability, is to hide that building from everybody's sight, whilst realising that it actually is a great venue, space-wise, inside, that not only serves ourselves, but as the previous speaker said, it serves the community of Salford well. From this home, we run a number of things. Currently, today, we're in 5 primary schools doing Stop Holiday Hunger programmes. We have over 300 to 400 contacts a month around the streets, helping people, not just giving out food, but helping them to get back into society in some positive way. We've got 3 houses that are currently serve as stopover places where people can get into assistance, gain help, and then move on to more full-time, long-term accommodation. We've delivered over 40,000 meals during COVID, and we've got 200 people currently learning English in an ESOL program, which is being delivered online. COVID's changed everything, but it hasn't changed our heart to help people in and around our community. We're running multiple programs, such as mental wellbeing courses, therapeutic counselling and debt advice, all of which are housed and held in our existing building. As the church has expanded, what has become clear is we need some more floor space. Currently, we actually rent car park spaces on a Sunday in the Diva Centre, and also our office and daily hub is office facilities within the Diva Centre. So we feel we have a genuine need for a larger building and additional parking to facilitate the further growth of the church and to be able to impact the community around us in a positive way. The revised scheme does focus on putting the car park in place and what we term the link building, which would join the existing facility, hide the facade of that and give a better frontage onto Trinity Way, and then allow connectivity to between the use of the building, but also aid connectivity between different neighbourhoods and transit routes in between the opposing sides of Trinity Way. We think that the landscaping will also produce a much better frontage and service for everybody involved and around us. If we look at the detailed design just now of the development as set out in the officer's comprehensive report, the scale and massing is improved and takes on board comments from the previous development, hence making it slightly smaller and giving more light into certain areas. We believe that the design proposals are of high quality and would be instantly recognisable as a public building for all people. Other considerations have all been dealt with in the technical assessments and have been undertaken during the design period, and we feel that we're taking essentially a brownfield site and making something new. To conclude, and thank you for your time, didn't want to take up too much of the 10 minutes, we believe it's of high architectural quality. It will insist in improving the area, and furthermore, it will deliver substantial benefits to the community and allow us to continue our work in and around the city. We are expanding into other areas within the UK, however, Salford will remain our home. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to your response.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Thank you so much. Councillor Hamilton, you are next. We're just going to let the one wipe down the chair and stuff. Mr Steele, I am right that there was only one speaker from yourself. Thank you. Thanks, Alana. Thank you very much. Hello, Councillor Hamilton. It's your 5 minutes when everybody... Councillor Hamilton, if you just press your button again, your microphone's gone off. Excellent stuff. Whenever you're ready, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. I've decided what I'll do is I'm going to read out a letter that I've received from a resident on behalf of a lot of other residents in Block C Alto.
Okay, we'll make that letter your 5 minutes. Is that okay?
It'll be just 5 minutes, spot on.
Nice one.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'd like to say, first of all, I've heard nothing but good about the people and the services from Audacious. I'd like to carry on with the letter from Mrs. Shalag, saying firstly that we have a lot of the population coming into Salford and Manchester by routes of public transport, etc. Okay, so the letter starts and she says everything that I would like to say and endorse as well. And I will go over a couple of the points that have already been said, but I want to do this justice on behalf of our residents. There have been objections and some support. I suspect that most of the support has come from members of the church and not residents who will have to live right next door to a multi-storey car park. I do not object to the improvement of the church, but do not believe a large multi-storey car park is necessary in terms of the current use of the surface car park. It has not been full despite the lifting of restrictions. The congregation have been attending services for several months now, and again the car park is not full. In fact, in recent weeks, part of the car park has been used for the children to play football on after the services with an inflatable football pitch. Councillor Hamilton, I would like your assistance in preventing the building of a multi-storey car park, 7 storeys, right next to my home. I do not feel that it's inappropriate to have a multi-storey car park amongst residential properties. The application from the Audacious Church, application number 217736 FUL, and states erection of a 5-storey extension to the southwest and a 2-storey extension to the northeast of the existing steel portal frame building to provide new and enhanced facilities for the church, the use class F1, together with the construction of a multi-storey, again 7 stories, car park with associated access and landscaping. However, the plan seemed to indicate that part of the building linking the car park to the church would be higher than this, 8 or 9 stories. The application does not state the real height in my opinion, as it says it is for 5 to 7 stories, then that should apply to the whole of the building. The design and access statement says that the church wishes to enhance people's lives, but the proposed car park will do little to enhance the lives of local residents. If anything, it will have a negative impact on our homes. The design and access statement also says that the building will be mostly visually prominent from Trinity Way. This is not the case for all apartments who overlook the church or the Diva Centre at the back. Also in section 2.2 of the statement mentions that these buildings nearby have punched windows. The windows in Block C Alto that overlook the car park have full-length windows, so this is inaccurate. As I've already stated, I am concerned about the car park being so close to the residential property. Our bedroom looks out onto the current car park, and I feel the noise and pollution from the increased cars travelling down a small side road to access the car park will affect us substantially. I feel that the size of the car park is unnecessary, as there are 2 other multi-storey car parks which have been built close by. I believe that Salford Council are committed to improving the environment and air quality and to decrease traffic coming into the city. I feel that building yet another multi-storey car park is not necessary, and will only serve to increase traffic into the city rather than the use of public transport. The Council has committed to improving cycleways and encouraging people to walk and cycle in Salford and the surrounding area. Approving this application goes against this. Salford City Council has recently made the following statement. The Council has a vision is to create a fairer, greener and healthier Salford. Therefore, I believe that consideration should be given to reducing the scale of this development, especially in relation to the car park, to achieve this vision. The environment, pollution and cutting carbon emissions is a key area now, being looked at by both national and local government. I believe that to allow this car park to be built will show lack of commitment to the number 7 of the mayoral priorities, which include tackling climate emergency and encouraging active travel and improvements in air quality. And should finally like to say, in conclusion, I'm not objecting to an improvement in the current building, but it appears that the majority of the application relates to a multi-storey car park, which should be discouraged and not approved. It may seem just a small matter to most people, but every small change made to help the environment is important.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to endorse that as the ward councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton, if you could essentially go around the corner and leave the room, I'd be very grateful. Thank you so much. Okay, I don't have any other ward members who've registered to speak, so members are going to move on to the debate. Thank you so much for your submissions. Just before we do, members, it was mentioned about the construction works during, if this was approved during its construction. So we're just going to get some advice from Mr. Hodgson about what weight we should be giving to the construction phase of any development that may or may not be approved. And then I'm going to go back to Mr. Williams and ask him about does car parking and the proof of need of car parking need a sequential test? Okay. Mr. Hodgson, on the weight of the construction phase, that members should be given.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And the report obviously tackles and addresses the issue of noise generally from development, and clearly a construction phase is part of that noise assessment. Inevitably, any scheme, large or small, will have some impact during construction, including this application here. And obviously, where this site is located, there has been obviously almost unprecedented development in central Salford over the last few years, and there will be some impact for a period of time. The way we've obviously assessed this and with the applicant's submission is, and it is quite a normal position to take or a condition to adopt, we've got a construction management plan, and that has got several components that seek to control as best and manage the impact of construction during various phases. So it is a condition that is imposed on this recommendation at number 10, and amongst other matters it seeks to control and manage matters of noise, construction, car parking, how the developer also monitors the scheme and how it can relate to residents and how residents can complain or engage in that process. So, Chair, there is weight. Clearly, you do attach some weight to it, but the recommendation suggests that can be adequately managed through that condition, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgson. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Williams, it's on the car parking need, the test for car parking need. Is it a sequential test, as would be like for any retail, etc.? And also, would you just go back through the scale and massing slides as well from the extant application and now this new application on the site? Thank you.
Of course, Chair. So in terms of demonstrating a need for a car parking facility, there is no sequential test required to demonstrate that need at local or national level. It is acknowledged that we are seeking to achieve more carbon neutral into the future. However, at this point in time, the reference to need is not a material consideration in the termination of this planning application. If I may, I just wanted to bring in Phil Mason, who's our environmental consultant, in regards to the air quality and also any resultant impact upon the amenities of the neighbours, if that's possible.
Yes, by all means. Mr Mason, would you introduce your good self?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. My name is Phil Mason and I'm an environmental consultant advising planning on environmental matters.
Did you catch Mr Williams' question, Mr Mason?
Sorry, Chair. I thought you just asked me to introduce myself. Yes, in terms of air quality, the applicant did submit an air quality impact assessment because there's a net increase of some 222 car parking spaces over and above what's there already. The air quality assessment assessed the increase due to extra movements on the highway network and concluded that the impact or the biggest change in concentrations of nitrogen dioxide would be less than 0.1 microgram per metre cube, so it's not a significant increase. In terms of electric vehicle charging and sustainability, we put a condition in, I believe condition 17, requiring the applicant to submit a scheme at a later date to incorporate electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The air quality assessment report recommended that there be electric vehicle charging spaces within the development. So I hope that answers the question, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Mason. And Mr Williams, could you just go through the scale and massing slides again, once again, please, from the extent application and the current one?
Yes, Chair. So just as requested by the Chair, I just wanted to just touch upon the scale and massing of the proposed development, in particular in regards to how this compared to the previously approved application. As you see on the bottom hand slide, it would actually probably be better to view it from the next slide here. So the previously approved planning application sought a 5-storey extension to the front, which actually obscured the majority of the existing Audacious Church building. It also sought up to, I think it was a 6 to 7-storey extension, which projected forward of the proposed development, and it also was closer to the Alto residences. So in terms of scale and massing, there has been it's quite obvious that there has been a reduced massing of development as viewed from this area. I also just wanted to touch upon the distances maintained between the side elevation of the proposed development and the residences at the Auto apartments. So as proposed, this distance has it been increased to 25 metres at its widest point, and also it is noted that the lowest floor of the residential accommodation within Block C sits on a 1.5-storey podium base, so it's actually above this element here. So as per the submission details, the applicant has provided us with a daylight landscape drawing. This demonstrated that the distances between these two elements are satisfactory. It also extends beyond the 21 metres that we normally require, and that's for facing development from habitable room windows. That actually distance is reduced quite considerably if it's a blank facade. So in terms of distances maintained and ensuring that there is adequate amenity for residential properties, for adjoining residential properties, the planning authority of the opinion that this development is certainly an improvement over and above the previously permitted scheme, but notwithstanding that, it will still provide a suitable level of amenity for those residences. I hope this clarifies your question, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, am I correct in thinking that the current scheme has less car parking spaces than the previous approved scheme?
It does. It's over 25 car parking spaces less than the previously approved scheme.
Thank you so much. Okay, members, you've heard that it's smaller in design, smaller in mass. Councillor Cusack, sorry. And did I see a hand go up that? Councillor McCusker. Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's interesting that churches have been a key feature of our townscapes and village-scapes since the Middle Ages, and I've no difficulty at all with the church element of this application, except for the use of Core 10, which I dislike intensely, but I recognise that that's only a personal prejudice, which I apologise for. But I am confused, however, about the car park. I'm not sure whether we're being asked to approve a plan for a church and a car park, or a car park that is entirely ancillary to the church. If it's going to be a 360 space multi-storey, which it looks like, is it going to be a commercial car park? Is it going to be free to the public, free to church members? If it is going to be a commercial car park, then I think we've got two separate planning applications here essentially, and that is on the one hand a planning application for a church, which as I say, I have no problems with, but on the other hand, a planning application for a commercial car park which can also be used by members of the church. I don't know, and I'd seek advice on this, whether the commercial aspect of the car park, if there is one, is a material consideration, and equally whether or not the officers have got any commentary on the use of the car park. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Cusack. I do remember from the first application, the original, that the way the car park would be managed and used, and how it would envelope and be part of the development, etc. It was very well described back then. So this application hasn't quite teased that out.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm not aware of the first application because I wasn't a member of the planning panel in those days, but I think we've got to look at this in isolation from that application.
Let's get you some answers on that side of the commercial side, and if that is a material thing. Mr. Williams, did you hear Councillor Cusack
Hello, Chair.
fully?
I did, yes.
Yes, so if we could just understand the relationship to the church, to the car park to the church, and what was the commercial elements are in there, and what weight we need to give to that commercial element, if it is material, if it's not, it's okay.
Okay, of course. Yes, it will be a commercial car park, but it will also be used ancillary to the church as well. It will be their main car parking area for patrons and any of those who wish to use the church throughout the week and on the weekend. In terms of whether or not it represents a material consideration, we have to consider this each as it's submitted. So no, we wouldn't necessarily consider it to be a material consideration that it is going to be a commercial car park. We have to take it as a whole, as what has been submitted.
Councillor Cusack, would it help if I brought the applicant in just to give us a factual answer of how they envisage they're going to manage it?
Yeah, yes, I think it would, Chair, but I'd like to reiterate the comment. It looks as though we're being asked to approve not only a church, but also a commercial car park here.
Yes, okay. Mr. Steele, would you just come in just quickly? We just need factual answers about how you're going to, how both we're going to interrelate with each other. Would that be okay? If you could press the silver button, Luana will do it for you. Thanks, Luana.
So the car park is an integral part of offering any service in any part of life nowadays. So the car park is run commercially by ourselves, which generates funds for us to continue our work in and around the community. when we purchased the first building, when we purchased the site originally, it was the business plan of the car park that allowed us to take over the site, which turned a unit which had nobody in it for at least 7 years into something that became a thriving area. So the two are unfortunately, and you're intrinsically linked. Without the car park, it would mean that we would no longer be able to continue growth. As we've already said, we currently hire extra car park spaces within the Diva Centre to facilitate the needs of on a Sunday. And whenever we deliver a conference for that may be, for example, iNetwork for the councils around the neighbourhood, we actually require that car park spaces to deliver the conference. So it would be like asking Manchester Central to not have the car park beside them for context. So it is necessary both on a Sunday and midweek for our operations.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor? Because I don't believe it's a hurdle that you can't overcome, is it?
I'm not happy with this, Chair. I don't think the comparison with Manchester Central is appropriate. I don't think they are comparable in any way, shape or form. I think we're being asked for, from my understanding, to approve an application for a commercial car park, and the church application is dependent on that. I still think quite categorically they're two different things.
Okay, Councillor, I just need to, as you said it yourself, we need to understand the weight of what we're giving is this material, and as we heard earlier, that the need for a car park in this area, it's not a material consideration because there's no sequential test for such. If I bring in Mr. Shuttleworth, who's our lead for planning policy in the city, it might be able to help us. Is that okay?
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, I suppose, in terms of policy, we don't have a specific policy which would necessarily guide against multi-storey car parks as a specific provision. I suppose I can recognise the issues being raised by Councillor Cusack, I think, in relation to those areas. I think it's to be clear, we don't have that specific policy, and the emergent local plan, whilst obviously promotes maximum parking for ancillary towards developments, has the policy in terms of multi-storey car parking in the city centre would be to focus on locations near to the inner relief road. I suppose this location probably does qualify for that, notwithstanding obviously overall there's an ambition that these sort of locations do have are accessible by other modes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Shuttleworth. Does that help any at all? I'm going to be forward.
I understand that, but I still think we're being asked to approve a multi-storey car park that is a commercial multi-storey car park. If it had been a free multi-storey car park, I think I'd have a different opinion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. I'm going to move forward now. I will come back if I do need you. Is that okay? Councillor McCusker, you've indicated. Anybody else? Councillor McCusker.
Yeah, the applicant's representative said that they were trying to hide the church in terms of painting the cladding black. I really wish they'd done a better job at hiding that building. It's a far worse design than the original proposal that came forward. However, I can understand the need for a car park to income generate to allow them to expand, and I can see that as a sensible business measure for them to take. In terms of issues around pollution, obviously this week we have endorsed the clean air zone category C as a council, which is seeking to change really the type of vehicles that are coming into the city centre in order to reduce the carbon dioxide production in the area. So the council is committed towards it, and we have managed to get rid of most of surface level car parks across the city. We're currently sat in a building built upon them. So in the past, people would drive through Salford to park in Salford to then walk into Manchester to work, where we got all the pollution and none of the benefits. And I think strategy that we've adopted in terms of developing high-rise living within the city centre has been beneficial in terms of taking a lot of pressure off our green spaces for development. So given the amount of investment that the council has been making into improving walking and cycling, now there's a Greater Manchester trying to take over the regulation of buses in order for them to work in people's interest rather than for profit. And in terms of the clean air zone, which will dramatically change the type of vehicles that are coming into the city centre, I don't see that a car park that has 25 less places than we'd already agreed is going to attract more vehicles to the city centre. The current city centre travel strategy that we've got in conjunction with Manchester City Council is trying to hold traffic levels to what they are now till 2040. And I don't see this as impacting on that. So for those reasons, Chair, I'd like to move acceptance.
Thank you, Councillor McCusker. Is there any other member wishing to speak? No. Okay. Yeah. You know, this application isn't as bold as the previous application, but I believe there's some good architectural merits in there. But unlike Councillor Cusack, I'm a little partial to Core 10 steel. So it's all in the eye of the beholder materials. However, though, could I ask members, if it is approved today, would you delegate condition 3, which is the materials, to the Assistant Director in consultation with the Chair? I think it's very important that we get the materials right in this situation. I mean, we've got some pretty good polished concrete going on with the Domus site on the corner with the Friars pub, and that's been elegantly quite well produced and delivered in public realm space too. And then the outer building is a good solid strong brick, and I think something that goes in between here, we really need to keep those materials up if we're going to take this slightly lesser, bolder design than what was previous. So I think some political oversight on that would be necessary. So if you would agree to condition 3 being delegated to Assistant Director for Planning in consultation with the Chair, I'd be very grateful. I've seen some nods somewhere. So, okay. Is anyone willing to second the application? I'll move the office. I'll second the officer's recommendation then. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. It's been moved and seconded for approval with the condition 3 to be delegated to the Assistant Director and Chair, and I did hear the sentiments from yourself, Councillor McCusker, about that facade on the original shed. We do need to get that of more interest as best we can. All in favour of that, please show. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there was two abstentions and 2 against and 3 for. Is that okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much. Okay, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Birch, can you hear me from around the corner? Okay, ladies, please take your seat. I won't start before you're comfortable, I promise you. Mr. Williams, I do understand you're the presenting officer for the next application, so could you bring your front screen up, please? Members, it's page 5, it's item 5C. Welcome back, ladies. It's pages 73 to 103 on your report, and on your amendment sheet, page 4. Mr. Williams, can you go forward a screen and back a screen, so make sure it's all working? And can I hear your good self? Mr. Williams, Mr. Allen, just before you leave, it was heard loud and clear by the members of the panel about the noise issues that you've got from the current construction site. In this agenda of this panel, we have our enforcement officer coming to report to us about the last quarter report. This panel will raise that issue with him. We will make sure through Miss Edwards that he will communicate with your good self. Is that okay? And see what we can do for yourself. Having generators running 24/7, completely from the outside point of view, is just not acceptable when residents are trying to sleep. So let's get on top of that for your good self. Is that okay? No, thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you. Okay, members, as I say, it's item 5C. Mr. Williams, I did hear your voice. You do have the floor. Over to you, good self.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to the former Motor Sports Centre along Hallsworth Road in Eccles. It's currently served by the Salford Roosters rugby team. The proposal seeks the demolition of the clubhouse and the erection of 48 dwellings consisting 18 houses and 30 apartments. The proposal is for 100% affordable housing. In terms of location, the application relates to the existing base of operations for Salford City Roosters Rugby League Club, closes along Hallsworth Road to the north of the A57 at Liverpool Road. The site, measuring approximately 0.78 hectares, comprises a central single-storey clubhouse with a car parking area and informal green space delineated by a mixture of galvanised palisade fencing, hedgerows and established tree line, particularly along the southern elevation. The site is bordered to the north by the Salford Greenway, as seen here, beyond which lies an expanse of high standing which is currently being redeveloped as a new base for Salford City Roosters Rugby League Club, which is due to be completed in October this year. To the east lies a carriageway providing vernacular access to and from car parking from the existing apartments, and also to the south, delineated by an established tree line alongside the rear curtilages of those properties along Moat Hall Avenue. The western boundary lies within close proximity to the Worsley Brook, just outlined in the dark shaded area here, and a steep wooded verge towards the junction of the M11 slip road and the M60 carriageway. There's also advertisement boards on the northwest corner of the application site, which will be removed to facilitate this development. The slides provides, again, a three-dimensional area view of the application site, whereby the scale and massing of the surrounding development within its immediate context of the existing clubhouse is clearly shown. Of particular note is the urban grey of the neighbouring streets, which is characterised by predominantly two-storey semi-detached properties, and to the east of the application site, a two-storey flat-roofed apartment building. This slide provides a street scene as viewed along Hallsworth Road. The top photograph has been taken to show the style and density of residential development within the existing gated entranceway into the application site, centred on the background. You can just see it there. The bottom photograph provides a close-up view of the application site with the fence line, clubhouse and surrounding trees of most prominence. Apologies. This slide shows a viewpoint of the application site from Salford Greenway. You can see the clubhouse in the distance here, and also the existing signage boards which are to be removed. You'll also note the slightly elevated position of the application site to the Salford Greenway at this point. The bottom photograph here actually shows the proposed entranceway into the clubhouse, which is due to be completed in October this year. This lies just north of Hallsworth Road, and Salford Greenway can be seen just to the left here. In terms of the adjacent clubhouse development, to the north of the application site lies an area of hard standing, which, as I explained previously, is currently in the process of being redeveloped to provide a new and improved clubhouse for the Salford Roosters. The applicant has confirmed that no commencement works will take place on this application site until the clubhouse has been completed and Salford Roosters relocated. The proposed development brought before panel comprises a 48 dwelling scheme of 100% affordable housing. The development will be accessed from Hallsworth Road, whereby a new car park will be created to the southeast portion of the site to provide 3 car parking spaces for the adjacent newly constructed dwelling houses, and also 6 spaces retained for the existing apartment building. This represents a betterment to the existing car park, which is currently informally laid. A central estate road is proposed, which extends from Halsworth Road towards the 28-bay car park, serving the proposed apartment building to the northwest. It's self-containing 21 bed apartments and 10 two-bed apartments. This area will also contain an external bin and cycle store, as seen here. The dwelling houses have been laid around the estate road and connecting Halsworth Road, with the house types comprising 4 two-bed bungalows, as marked in green. We have 6 two-bedroom houses, as marked in blue, and then we have 8 three-bedroom houses in yellow. The bungalows to plots 4, 5 and 6 will be served by 1 car park space per house, whilst the remaining houses will have 2 car parking spaces. In terms of the elevational treatment, the dwelling houses have been constructed in a mixture of buff and red alternating brick under a zinc seamed roofing. The contemporary fenestration is to be articulated by deep reveals and horizontal banding which runs throughout the development. This slide provides an alternative brick type, again articulated in the same way, with dual aspect to create active frontages and improve passive surveillance on houses which are on a corner position. So you can see here the side elevation of the property. The next slide provides the elevations for the bungalow, again constructed in similar materials with large windows as per the houses. This slide illustrates the apartment building, constructed over 3 stories under a parapet flat roof. It's anticipated that the scheme will utilise corresponding red brick, again with articulation provided to fenestration patterns and the banding seen to the housing itself. The applicant has also provided street scenes as viewed from the Salford Greenway from the top here. We also have some additional internal street scenes to the centre, and again as viewed from Salford Road, Halsworth Road. Apologies. The applicant has also commissioned CGIs as viewed from public vantage points to give an indication as to how the development could look once firmly established within the local area. So as viewed at the top, CGI here is from the approved clubhouse, which is currently under construction, and then below here is viewing, looking into development and to the proposed estate road. The applicant has provided an indicative landscape plan, which illustrates the additional landscaping works which are due to take place, alongside the planting of trees to replace those lost on a 2-for-1 basis in accordance with council policy. The tree specimens are to be confirmed through a tree replacement scheme recommended as an attachment, as a condition attached to any approval. Given the anticipated increase in vehicular activity along Halsworth Road and surrounding highway network, the local highway authority is recommending a number of highway works which will be delivered through section 38 and the 278 agreement. These will seek to improve pedestrian and vehicular movement and highway safety, and include junction protection measures to the entrance of the development itself, tactile paved drop crossings to be used at certain points in the surrounding roads, the introduction of a 20-mile-an-hour scheme across those residential roads accessed via and including Gorton Street and Schofield Road to the east, which connect into Halsworth Road, and also a one-way system to be introduced on Schofield Road and Gorton Street. So whilst it has been demonstrated that planning contributions toward open space and education cannot be paid, the scheme does represent an efficient use of land for 100% affordable housing. It does comply with the relevant policies insofar that alternative provision for Salford Roosters has been approved and is currently under construction. The design is considered integrative and locally distinctive. It's considered that there is no harm upon the amenities of neighbouring residential properties, and in terms of trees and landscaping. Any trees lost will be placed on 2-for-1 basis with improved biodiversity enhancement measures as requested through condition. There's been no objection received from consultees, subject to appropriately worded conditions and the mitigation package explained to you before. The application has, we have received 17 letters of objection from properties along Horsworth Road itself. However, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the attachment of conditions outlined within the panel report and the addendum report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you so much. Okay, Miss Edwards, I don't believe any objectors have registered to speak.
No, Chair, we don't.
And Mr. Kelly, I do believe you have registered to speak, but you're actually only here to answer questions. Is that okay? No problem. So if we do need you, we'll bring straight in. Is that okay? And no ward members have wished to speak neither. So, okay, members, open to yourself. 100% affordable housing. Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair. I believe part of the site was occupied by Barton Old Hall in the past. I'd just like some clarification on whether there is any archaeological importance attached to any part of the site or not, whether it's been investigated and whether we need to do anything about any potential archaeology. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, are we asking GMAU to do a site survey, a site investigation? Is that,
no, we haven't asked the GMAU to request an investigation as it didn't form part of the validation requirement to determine the planning application itself.
Oh, okay. That's quite disappointing, really. I do like to make sure we have a commitment as a city and as a planning authority with GMAU that we're a piece of a site that might have some historical significance, that we always do consult with them and do communicate with them. It's an undertaking that the previous lead member have and that I have chair have had. So what can we do condition-wise to make sure that this happens? Can I just bring in Mr. Hodgson?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, and obviously Councillor Cusack has raised an issue about a potential, obviously, constraint or an asset.
It's literally the initial desk-based survey that we like to see to take place. So then we understand if we need to be asking for any further requirements. It's just literally they have they have years and years of maps just to lay and they just have a look at the history and see if there's anything that they could actually find. Councillor Cusack, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Absolutely that. I'm not suggesting that there is any area of archaeological importance here. I just know that it is in the environ of where Barton Old Hall was, and I just think we should ask the question. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, as this panel knows, yes, we quite right should impose conditions that are both necessary, relevant, etc. I just don't know, and I think Councillor Cusack doesn't definitely know that there is potentially on the application side, so it wouldn't be right to guess and impose a condition that's not relevant or necessary, Chair. That's the issue, and obviously Mr. Williams hasn't been able to advise one way or the other whether there is that potential asset within the site itself, Chair.
Yeah, it's just as a planning authority, we like to see those desk-based surveys happen on our sites. We don't miss any of our heritage or our history. So how can we get a desk-based survey happen here? Because I don't want to hold this application up. By all means, it's a 100% affordable housing. It's one of the best for Viva sites that I've seen come forward to the city. You know, it's using good materials, it's producing a good mix of different housing to meet different needs. What we just want to make sure.
I don't know whether the applicant already can assist in this process, because obviously,
yeah,
if it was a desk-based analysis, it would probably be a pre-commencement condition as well, which I'd also have to have the written approval for the applicant before we proceed, Chair.
Mr. Kelly, by all means, this panel does not want to hold up affordable housing in our city. We have a great need, but we do have a commitment to GMAU and our historical past to make sure that we do survey our land before we build over it, just in case that there might be some historical context that we need to register, either recover or just simply acknowledge the existence of the place, and that informs the future development, maybe through street names or through some interpretation. Mr. Kelly, are you willing to work with me and the Assistant Director as Chair with a desk-based survey, etc.? You would be, Mr. Kelly. Is that okay? Fabulous. Does that help, Councillor Cusack?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Hodgson, would that be okay?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Really appreciate that. Cheers. Okay, members. I'm willing to move the application, members. I really do like it. I think it's fabulous. Councillor Birch and Councillor McCusker.
Just to say, brilliant to see social housing in the city, and I would like to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor McCusker.
Yeah, I really like the design of the layout of the site. I think all the traffic elements that residents were concerned about seem to be their concerns seem to be met in the way that the traffic is going to be managed as well. So I was going to try and second it before Councillor Birch, but she beat me to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCusker. Okay, members, have been moved and seconded for approval with it delegated to the Assistant Director and myself, the Chair, to work with the applicants to get ourselves a desk-based survey through GMAU of what the if there is any history there to make sure we've not missed anything. Is that okay? All in favour of that, please show. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, application has been approved. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for understanding, Mr. Kelly. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, members, moving right on to item 5D. Mr. Ketley, I do believe you're presenting. It's pages 105 to 128 on your agenda sheet, members. It's amendment sheet page 3. Mr. Ketley, can I hear you yourself?
Morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Great. Can you go forward and back one? Great. The floor is yours, Mr. Ketley.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application that seeks consent to demolish the Unicorn Public House and redevelop the site to create 16 new dwellings. This is the application site. The Unicorn Pub, which is vacant, sits at the northeastern corner at the junction of Liverpool Road and Peel Green Road. Harrison Street runs along the southern edge of the site, beyond which is terraced housing. Residential properties are also located to the west. Peel Green Neighbourhood Centre is located to the northeast and extends further along Liverpool Road. Vehicular access onto the site is currently achieved at the junction between Liverpool Road and Peel Green Road, as shown by the magenta arrow there, although historic access points also appear to exist via Peel Green Road and Harrison Street. Some images from in and around the site now to provide you with a bit of context. These particular ones are taken from Harrison Street to the south. You can see that the street boundary currently comprises of high brick wall and palisade fencing. In this instance, the magenta arrow is just highlighting the position of the pub. In 2020, an application was submitted to the council nominating the Unicorn as an asset of community value. However, given the landowner's known intentions for the site, it was not considered that there was a realistic prospect of the building being used to further the social well-being or social interests of the local community within the next 5 years. Consequently, that nomination failed on these grounds and does not feature on the council's register of assets of community value. These are views from Peel Green Road to the east. The applicant's submission indicates that the Unicorn suffered from a lack of demand and patronage at the time of its closure, and through their application they have also established that there is an appropriate provision of other public houses within the surrounding area to serve former customers, and that no known community groups or teams were displaced by that closure. This slide shows the application site as seen from Liverpool Road. The Unicorn dates from the Edwardian period and was built in the Tudor Revival style. It is not listed and does not feature on the council's local list of non-designated heritage assets. You'll note from the officer report on page 113 that the building is considered to have some architectural merit as a landmark building, although it's been altered over the years, particularly internally, and is not considered to be in a good state of repair. A heritage appraisal has been submitted with the application, and after careful assessment, officers are in agreement that the significance of the existing building as a heritage asset is relatively limited given its current condition and the prevalence of other public houses in the area which have a similar design but are better preserved. Whilst not a direct requirement of the application process, the applicant has also demonstrated that conversion of the existing building would prove to be inefficient and unviable in the context of the wider plot. Officers have therefore raised no objections to the demolition of the public house, but have recommended that a condition requiring a photographic record of the building be undertaken prior to its demolition. So the application seeks consent to erect 16 two-storey houses on the site, laid out so as to address the surrounding highways and follow existing building lines where appropriate. Each property would benefit from its own private rear garden and 2 car parking spaces, some of which would be provided within parking courts, which you can see here and here. Hedging and soft landscaping has been incorporated into the layout of front gardens. The footways around the site are set to be resurfaced. So that's these around here. New driveways and car parking accesses would also be created along each of the site's 3 highway frontages. Officers are satisfied that appropriate separation distances have been retained to existing neighbouring properties and also within the site itself. 6 of the dwellings will provide 2 bedrooms, whilst the remaining 10 will benefit from 3 bedrooms, a mix that complies with the Council's housing planning guidance. The house sizes also meet the standards set out within the nationally described space standards. 4 house types have been proposed across the site, providing a range of accommodation options for future residents. It's considered that the properties have been appropriately designed and will sit comfortably within their surroundings. 20 letters of objection have been received in response to the application, along with a petition containing 172 signatures that objects to the demolition of the existing pub. The concerns raised are summarised on pages 107 and 108 of your agenda packs. 2 neutral representations and 4 letters of support have also been submitted. No objections have been raised by consultees, including on the grounds of flood risk, noise and highway safety. Following a review of scheme viability, an initial contribution of £73,698 has been secured, which will be directed towards improvements to education facilities and open space in the area. A clawback mechanism will be included within the legal agreement to secure additional monies in the event that the scheme performs better in the future than is currently forecasted. Overall, whilst the loss of the Unicorn Public House would result in a limited level of harm, officers have concluded that it would be readily outweighed by the benefits associated with the comprehensive redevelopment of the site. Consequently, the development is recommended for approval, subject to the signing of a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ketley. Thank you so much. Okay, Ms. Edmonds, I don't believe there's any objectors registered to speak.
No, there hasn't.
No problem. I've got Mr. Sturgis. Mr. Sturgis, are you speaking? No problem. Thank you, Luana. Mr. Sturgis, do you need 10 minutes? Is 5 minutes suffice?
I should be able to get through it a bit quicker than that, hopefully.
No problem. Well, I'll give you the full 10, but I'll give you a shout at 9 if anything. Okay. Over to you, good self.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the applicant this morning. My name is James Sturgis from Caldecott Group. I'm the applicant's planning agent. I have qualifications in urban design and historic conservation, and I've been dealing with this planning application. We've worked hard together with the Council's planning team and its consultees through the pre-application advice service and during the course of determination to design a scheme which is planning policy compliant. The proposals involve the demolition of the existing building and the erection of 16 new dwellings which provide a mix of 2- and 3-bedroom houses on a sustainable urban brownfield site. The houses are to be fitted with zero carbon technologies, and the site would be a flagship development demonstrating the use of new energy efficient measures to significantly reduce energy emissions. To address the concerns that have been put forward in respect to the application, we've explored and provided information on a number of matters raised by the consultees. It's recognised that public houses are classified as community facilities in the MPPF and saved UDP policy EHC4 also refers. These policies don't preclude the redevelopment of public houses, but rather that planning decisions should be made to ensure that the local community's ability to meet their day-to-day needs aren't jeopardised. It's regrettable that a number of factors have contributed to the unicorn's decline, including shifts generally in the pub market, caution in the economy even before the coronavirus pandemic, competition from nearby pubs, which is quite a lot in this case, and the availability of discounted alcohol supermarkets. The Unicorn is a wet-led pub, a type of trade that's already well catered for by other facilities within a reasonable walking distance, and indeed there are 13 alternative public houses within 2 kilometres. There's little demand in the area for another food-led pub, as such demand is already satisfied by others nearby. Its lack of facilities and overall poor condition do not provide it with any unique qualities, and that costs to repair and to create a differentiated offering would be substantial and unfeasible. The 2017 rateable value was significantly reduced by the Valuation Office when compared to the 2010 rate, which indicates that an already declining level of trade was occurring of up to 25% in real terms between 2008 and 2015. As noted in the officer's presentation, the council did not list the property as an asset of community value. As a result, the loss of this pub would not have an adverse impact upon the local residents in meeting their day-to-day needs. The local community would continue to have access to a range of rather better services, and their ability to interact within a pub meeting environment place would not be disadvantaged. As a result, both the local and national policies are met in this regard. Turning to the building itself, since the property's closure over 2 years ago, the site has required 24/7 security and has become a regular target for squatters and vandals. We have undertaken exercises to see if it were feasible to retain the existing building, but we found that a conversion scheme would have led to a development of relatively poor quality 1- and 2-bedroom apartments due to the constraints of the building. This housing type is contrary to policies HOU1 and HOU2 within the plan, and furthermore it was demonstrated to be unviable to deliver a conservation-led scheme, a conclusion which the council's own surveyors agreed with, and so the conversion was found not to be feasible. As noted within the Planning Officer's report, the level of harm brought about through the demolition of the Unicorn is limited, and we believe the development of new family housing would be a far greater benefit than a lower quality development of flats within the shell of an existing building. On matters of design and layout, the proposed layout, density, scale and massing is considered acceptable in its context and follows the general arrangement of older housing stock nearby, although obviously it's now updated to provide good levels of amenity space and private external amenity space. The form, details and materials would contribute to local identity, and the development would not introduce any harm to neighbouring residents in terms of sunlight, daylight, impact or privacy. The proposals wouldn't have a significant impact on the local highway network, and we have liaised with the highways team and agreed a scheme of public realm improvements to the Peel Green Road and Liverpool Road junction, which would be implemented as part of the development. The proposed layout would create a safer corner to the junction, replacing the existing and rather peculiar lay-by access to the site, and we've also proposed other measures to facilitate safer pedestrian crossings around the junction. The site is currently dominated by hard surfacing with rough areas of overgrown vegetation, and the proposed landscaping amenity areas would introduce green space and soften the appearance of the site, contribute more positively to the street scene, and biodiversity net gain of almost 150% can be achieved through the development. The proposals have taken into consideration the policy requirements in respect of air quality, noise, flood risk and drainage, and all of these have been adequately satisfied for planning purposes. And where conditions have been recommended, these have been accepted by the applicant. The Planning Officer's report outlines the key planning considerations and the reasons for recommending approval. They are considered acceptable in line with the MPPF, Salford local plan, and will deliver quantifiable planning gains in respect of energy efficiency, ecology and the delivery of much needed family housing.
We therefore respectfully ask that you agree with your planning officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Thank you so much. Okay, there's no ward members wishing to speak. Panel, Councillor McCusker?
It's just a query. Obviously, there's 172 signatories to the petition, which talks about the loss of a non-designated heritage asset, which they've capitalised. What does that mean?
Okay, might have to ask them, but we'll do our best. Mr. Ketley, could you answer that?
Yeah, no problem. So it essentially means a property that's recognised as being a heritage asset, but it's not formally listed. So it's not, for example, Grade 2, Grade 2 star, Grade 1 listed, but it is considered to have some historical significance, be that, you know, in terms of the quality of its architecture or important historical events that might have happened there.
By whom? Who's made that assessment?
Yeah, because we haven't locally listed it as an authority, have we? The authority also didn't.
We've not, but you'll note from the report that whilst it's acknowledged that it's not formally on our list, the kind of the MPPF still allows a property to be identified as a non-heritage asset as part of the assessment of an application, and we think that it probably has some enough merit to be considered as a non-heritage designated heritage asset, and it's been assessed on that basis. That being said, the significance is still relatively limited because of the condition of the pub and the number of other pubs in the area that are of better architectural merit.
The MPPF, Councillor McCusker, the least said, probably the better. Mr. Hodgson, did you want to come in?
I think Councillor McCusker was asking who. I think it was and I think obviously Mr. Ketley's given the correct long answer, and I think Councillor McCusker wants to know. I mean, so historically, England look at, as you know, listing of buildings of the national body. Local list will be the City Council, and as Chair has just said, and as Mr. Ketley just advised, it's the NPPF that sort of mops everything up beyond that. So it's like a policy guidance issue.
So, but it's old. That's what we're saying.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, it's got some value. Yes.
Unlike Councillor Cusack, who's not old. Councillor Cusack, it's yourself.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not quite as old as the building. It's been a landmark building for well over a century in this part of the world. And however, I take note of the fact that, and I've looked at the Pevsner architectural guides, and some pubs in the area are mentioned in these. The Unicorn isn't, and that indicates it's not really of significant architectural value in the area. I always lament the demise of a pub, particularly one that has an element of being iconic and individual about it, but I understand absolutely the commercial forces that mean we can't preserve all our pubs, sadly. I think the fact that the original Unicorn was demolished in 1895 and building on this new Unicorn was commenced by Mr. Harrison following that, and the pub is commemorated in the name of the adjacent street, which is Harrison Street. I think at least if the pub isn't remembered, the developer of the pub will be remembered by some of us. I think that the residential design is good. I think it suits the site, and sadly, because of the loss of the pub, I'd like to support the application, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gusser. Thank you so much. Councillor Momsham?
Yeah, I agree partially with Councillor Cusack. I think to answer Councillor McCusker's question, I think it was local camera who considered the pub of significance. And I think as a camera member, I'm saddened that we are losing a pub that has always been a landmark within Peel Green Eccles. And I think we've lost too many in Salford. And you look at what's happening, I understand what Councillor Cusack said about the economics of it all, but it saddens me that we can't save buildings. You know, one of my biggest worries at the moment is what's happening to the Crescent. I just think it's awful, and this is yet another landmark pub we're losing in Salford. And I just think the way that we're going, we're not going to have any landmark pubs left, and it deeply, deeply saddens me. I can understand the way that sort of people's drinking habits have changed, but I still think that the buildings have merit and the buildings could be saved. So I will be opposing this, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. I've got Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. After all, we did have a unicorn in Salford. We still do. I don't want to repeat everything that's been said. On one hand, it is very sad to lose potentially, it hasn't been approved yet, the application, but potentially lose a building that is a landmark, and that for me, as somebody who was born outside of Britain, came here, everything from olden times is architecture, traditions is absolutely fascinating, and to me that encapsulates our, I guess, older culture, but still, to me, it's so British. And I would take photographs, send it to my family in Ukraine. Of I'm not saying I've taken a photograph of that particular pub, but that's the kind of building I would just celebrate, internationally. Very sad to see it go. And as Councillor Cusack is saying, there are external market powers that are above us, unfortunately, and it is, I understand it doesn't reach that threshold of being being classed as an asset of community value, and it's not listed, and I guess it is of value of those people who spent, who met there, then they got married, and all that, unfortunately, is going to be lost. To cut a long story short, I was wondering whether we could ask the developer whether they could take maybe some architectural element, of some description or a plaque from the pub, and maybe put it somewhere in the hall, in the building, somewhere, or create something, because I believe people, even in these beautiful, modern buildings of glass and concrete, they still like human touch and connection with history and with many people who went through this pub and whose lives were possibly transformed, hopefully for the better. Just a question to ask, if it's okay, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Sturgis, are you amenable for having a relook at when the demolition, if it is approved, does happen, that anything of value from the built form of the old pub could actually possibly be put into the boundary walls, or just little pieces of significance that might trigger people's minds to think about Harrison Street, Harrison Road, etc. Are you amenable to that? Yeah. Okay, we'll put that as a note. We can't enforce it, but we can put it as a note. Is that okay?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And then Councillor Hamilton, and then I'll ask members.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to echo what the previous councillors have said. It's really sad to be losing it. I'm really disheartened at losing it, but again, understand all the issues around it.
Councillor Cusack, I do believe you moved the application.
Yes, I'm happy to move the application, Chair.
Anyone will second it? Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval with the note about if there's anything through the demolition that could be saved to give an indication of the history of the site within the new developments. That would be great. All in favour of that, please show. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Nope. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much for your attendance. Okay, Mr. Williams, would you be able to pause the live stream? We're now going to need to recess. Good morning and welcome to Salford City Council Planning Panel. My name is Councillor Hamilton and I'm Chair of the Planning Panel. Given the pandemic, only elected members need to be physically present in meetings to make decisions, and so officers of the Council can join meetings remotely. The planning officers presenting items on the agenda will do so remotely. There are a number of officers that will give us advice today to the panel in person. Mr Hodgson, who's the lead for development management from the officers' side, and Mr Shuttleworth, who's lead for policy, planning policy in the council on the officer side. And then we have Miss Edwards, who's the clerk of our panel, and then any other officer will be presenting remotely. So that's okay. As you can guess from the beginning of this meeting, it's being live streamed. Can I just ask that if you do intend to photograph, speak or take part in the meeting, that you do so in such a manner as not to disturb other members of the public from speaking freely. That's all I ask. Finally, if you would be so kind to adhere to the COVID-safe protocols of this building, I'll be very happy, or be very grateful of your good selves. Okay, over to the order of business. First, the officers will present their submission to the panel. Second, any registered objectors present will be invited to speak. Third, any registered applicants or applicants' agents will be invited to speak. Fourth, any registered councillors, MPs or MPs representatives will be invited to speak. I'll allow 10 minutes for both sides. So if there's one speaker, it's 10 minutes. If there's two speakers, it's 5 minutes each. And if there are three, please divide again. Ward councillors will get 5 minutes each. After then, I'll close from your good selves and open up the debate with the panel. During that time, we'll focus solely on material planning grounds against the aims of the city's local and government's national planning policies. Finally, we'll move to a decision made on those material planning grounds by inviting the members of the panel to vote. If there is a motion contrary to officer's recommendation, then before any vote is taken, a senior officer will be asked to advise the panel of the merits of that motion. The chair will vote alongside all the other members of the panel. In the event of a tie, either chair will have a further casting vote to decide the application. Decisions were made today. Those decisions may or may not please everybody, but I'd like to think that everyone will leave the meeting satisfied that they'll have fair and equal hearing right throughout the proceedings. Thank you. Okay, members, the first item in this second session this morning is item 5E. Just because we've started a new session, I think what we'll do is we'll get Miss Edwards to read out who's actually present at the meeting, because the video camera doesn't always get around all the elected members that are in the room. Miss Edwards.
Okay, the councillors present are Councillor Tanya Birch, Phil Cusack, Jim Dawson, Jane Hamilton, Mike McCusker, Neil Reynolds, Peter Taylor, John Warmisham and yourself, Chair.
I'll make that nine people.
Members, yeah.
Thank you, Miss Edwards. Thank you so much. Okay, as I said, members, first item on this session is 5E. It's on your agenda pages 129 to 157. It's page 2 of your amendment sheet. Mr Ketley is the presenting officer. Mr Ketley, is that your front screen? Could you go forward a screen and back a screen, please?
It is, yeah, we'll do.
And I can hear you loud and clear. You have the floor, Mr Ketley. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for 8 dwellings on the former Rock House Pub Bowling Green. Members will recall that this application was deferred at the 3rd of June panel to provide the applicant with a further opportunity to fully demonstrate that the former bowling green site is surplus to all recreational uses, having regard to policy GS17 of the Council's Green Space Strategy. I'll provide a brief recap on the site location and the nature of the proposed development now. This is the former bowling green site, accessed off Edison Road in Eccles by what is currently the Rock House Pub car park. You can see that residential properties bound 3 sides of the site. This is an aerial view looking north. The site is located within the western edge of the Barton upon Irwell Conservation Area. The closest heritage asset is the Rock House Pub itself, which is locally listed.
Okay, Mr Ketley, unfortunately your slides don't seem to be moving in time with your good self. Should we restart?
I'm happy to. Is there just a little bit of a lag?
I'm not sure. What were we experiencing there? Oh, okay. Can we just start again? Mr Ketley, right from the top. Is that okay? Let's see if we've... So the issue was it wasn't coming through on our computers. Yeah. So it seems that what members are seeing via the devices the computers is not moving, but the live stream is moving.
Okay. All right, I'll start again and we'll see how we get on.
So that moved. Oh. I am. Is that the live stream, or is this the live stream? Mr. Williams, we'll just pause the meeting for a second while we just get this sorted out. Mr. Williams, would you be able to help us, please? Okay, anyone who's watching on live stream, we needed to pause as we had a technical difficulty. We're in the same session. It's item 5E of the 29th of July 2021 panel agenda. Mr. Ketley, you're the presenting officer. You have the floor. I can hear you. Could you just go forward a slide and back a slide just so we can confirm that we've got over our technical difficulty? I believe we are now over it. I can hear you good self. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is an application for 8 dwellings on the former Rock House pub bowling green. Members will recall that this application was deferred at the 3rd of June panel to provide the applicant with a further opportunity to fully demonstrate that the former bowling green site is surplus to all recreational uses, having regard to policy GS 17 of the Council's Green Space Strategy. So I'll provide a brief recap now on the site location and the nature of the proposed development. This is the former bowling green site, accessed off Edison Road in Eccles via what is currently the Rock House pub car park, which is just located here. You can see that residential properties bound 3 sides of the site. This is an aerial view looking north. The site is located at the western edge of the Barton upon Irwell Conservation Area. The closest heritage asset is the Rock House pub itself, which is locally listed. These images show the pub car park access. This is the pub and the former bowling green, which hasn't been formally used as a bowling green for some time. And then in these images, the former pavilion structure can be seen on the right-hand side there. This is the location plan for the site in a little bit more detail. You can see that the car park to the Rock House will continue to function as the pub's car park. That's just shown there. This is the proposed layout for the development. 2 terraces and a pair of semi-detached properties will be arranged in an L shape around a central access road. Each plot would benefit from its own private rear garden and 11 parking spaces would be provided. No residential amenity concerns or highways concerns have been raised by officers. These are the elevations for the dwellings themselves. First, plots 1 to 3 at the northern end. Then the semi-detached properties. There are 6 3-bed units measuring 90 square metres in size and 2 4-bed dwellings that provide 110 square metres of accommodation. And these are plots 6 to 8. The houses are set well away from the public street scene, but are considered to be appropriately designed in any event, having regard to their position within the conservation area. So there have been 14 objections and 2 letters of support in response to the application. A petition of signatures has also been received, which expresses opposition to the redevelopment of the former bowling green. You'll see from the updated panel report that Councillor Mullen has also submitted a representation. And the principal concerns raised by residents are summarised on pages 133 and 134 of your agenda packs. As you may recall, the original planning application included an assessment of existing bowling green provision in Eccles, which revealed that there is a decreasing demand for such facilities. There remains surplus capacity at bowling clubs and greens elsewhere in the area, and other greens are generally in a good condition. Officers are satisfied that it's been demonstrated that the site is surplus to requirements for use as a bowling green. The applicant has also demonstrated that the site could not reasonably be used for most other recreational uses. Following further assessment, it is considered that allotments could feasibly fit onto the site, although it's noted that in this instance, the site is in private ownership, with no indication that the landowner is willing to provide and maintain an allotment facility. Whilst the land is not surplus to all possible recreational requirements, there is some flexibility in the Council's policy, which allows for non-recreational uses, provided that appropriate compensation is paid and that the benefits of the scheme outweigh any harm caused by the loss of the existing facility. Here, the applicant has agreed to provide a contribution of £150,000 to compensate for the loss of the space, which will be used to fund open space improvements in the Barton and Winton ward. In weighing up the merits of this development, regard has been had to the realistically deliverable public benefits that this scheme will provide in the form of open space improvements and new family housing. It's considered that the public benefits generated by reusing the site as allotments are unlikely to materialise whilst it remains in private ownership. You'll see from your amendment sheets that some minor alterations have been made to plots 1 to 3, which have prompted the submission of an updated site plan and elevations. An updated set of floor plans has also been received for these units, and the wording for condition 2 would be updated accordingly if planning permission were to be granted. No objections have been received from consultees. A very minor degree of harm, which equates to less than substantial harm, has been identified to the character of the conservation area. However, this would be readily outweighed by the public benefits associated with the development, as detailed in the original report. Overall then, the application is again recommended for approval, subject to the schedule of conditions listed within the report and the signing of a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ketley. Thank you so much. I do have one objector registered to speak. I think it's a Mr. Mackenzie. Mr. Kenzie, would you like to come forward and speak? Lorna will turn the microphone on for yourself. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you. Mr. Mackenzie, I said you had 10 minutes at the beginning. If you would be so kind just to tell us where you reside, it just helps with context for the members to understand your submission. And after that, if you go straight into your 10 minutes, and I'll give you a shout about 9 minutes. Is that okay to help time your good self? You can take your mask off, it's by all means. Is that okay? Okay, over to your good self, Mr. Mackenzie.
Okay, so I reside at number 21 Ashby Drive, which is on the north face of the site that's in question. So firstly, I'd just like to point out that as residents, we still feel that the majority of the reasons that the application back in 2014 was refused still stand today. I know we talked about that in the previous meeting, but again, they still stand in terms of invasion of privacy, the effect of conservation area, etc. So I just wanted to bring that to the table and just to remind you. So in terms of it being surplus to requirement, as a recreational ground. The report, as briefly gone over just previously, that's been prepared for today, states that the site would be too small to accommodate a nature reserve, strategic natural green space, local natural green space, etc. However, just one that springs to mind from my own observations, just at the top of Folly Lane at Swinton, there's a small area there that's been turned in the last couple of years to a small nature reserve. It was just a flat green space, and it's much smaller than the site in question today. So I just find that a little bit difficult to fathom out. So the fact that the landowners and the applicants are accepting in the report that the land could be used as a form of recreation in terms of, for example, allotments, is a bit of a turnaround from what was previously explained as not being so. So now, the reason for the deferment of the last meeting, which was allowing the applicant opportunity to fully demonstrate that the former bowling green is surplus to all recreational uses, is being somewhat nullified purely on the basis of a compensation of £150,000 to be spent elsewhere. Which incidentally, the areas that's being mentioned for this £150,000 to be used up, as pointed out by one of the councillors at the previous meeting, are not within the Barton ward, so wouldn't be beneficial to immediate residents because it's outside of that ward. The applicant has agreed that it could be used for a recreational use, which was the whole point of the deferment 7-8 weeks ago, whatever it was. So all I'm going to do today is just ask you to really consider that this being, part of the conservation area, etc., and for all the reasons that have been mentioned previously by the residents, we went away to defer for more evidence that it's fully surplus to requirements. So I just wanted to ask the question, have they demonstrated fully that it's surplus to requirements as a recreational area? Personally, I think not. So I'll just ask you to consider that during today. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie. Thank you so much. Ms. Parsons, I believe you're wishing to speak, but Lauren's just going to wipe down after that. Thanks, Lorna. Ms. Parsons, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I'll give you a shout at 9. Is that okay?
Dear Chair and panel members, thank you for your consideration of this matter. I'm speaking on behalf of Punch Pubs & Co, the applicant. Since the panel meeting on the 3rd of June, when the application was deferred to examine possible open space options for the site, my client has liaised closely with your planning officers to provide any additional information required. Panel members will have seen the flyer that my client circulated prior to the previous meeting, which I trust has been helpful in setting out the detailed rationale for my client's proposals and the many benefits that flow from the proposal. The site last functioned as a bowling green over 15 years ago, and it has since then lain largely dormant. We have reviewed the Council's own data on bowling greens in the area, which confirms that there remains a surplus of bowling greens, indicating that there is no prospect of this bowling green ever being brought into use again. As set out in the officer's report, a detailed analysis of the other potential recreational uses, including those suggested by Councillor Mullen, has been undertaken. The majority of uses have been ruled out owing to the small size of the site, the close proximity of adjoining neighbours, and the fact that there is no realistic prospect of alternative open space uses coming forward. It should be noted that the site is private land, not open to the public, and any public use would require a relevant body to negotiate commercially acceptable terms to Punch. The Council is satisfied that the site is surplus to open space requirements in accordance with the Council's adopted guidelines Punch has agreed to make an open space contribution of £150,000, as set out under Sport England's current tariff. This contribution can be put towards any open space provision. Contribution has the potential to make a significant contribution to improving recreational facilities in the local area. This contribution will be secured through a Section 106 agreement, and one has already been agreed between the Council and Punch's lawyers. In regard to the proposed housing scheme, Punch has worked extensively with the Council's officers to devise a scheme of family housing which complements the conservation area and the setting of the Rock House. By proposing family housing, the proposals are compliant with your adopted policy requiring that most new residential development be in the form of houses rather than flats. The officer's report confirms that the proposals have the support of your conservation officer. Punch will provide a piece of public art on the site, as set out within the officer's suggested conditions, in order to memorialise the former bowling green for future generations. I note the scheme has satisfied all of the Council's other technical consultees. The scheme has been carefully designed to avoid any overlooking or overshadowing of any adjoining houses. I therefore trust that members will support the officer's recommendation and grant approval for this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Parsons. Thank you so much. Okay, there's no one else from the applicant's agents. One ward councillor who's registered to speak. Councillor Mullen, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You, Councillor Mullen, too. Councillor Mullen, let's try again, because I definitely got you, but I just got a crispy bit just as you spoke. Can you just speak to me again?
Yeah, can you hear me, panel members?
We can indeed. Councillor Mullen, all the members of the panel can hear you, and so can the members of the public. Councillor Mullen, as you know, we're on item 5E, which is the rear of Peel Green Road, as you spoke to previously when we deferred the application. Whenever you want to get started, it's your 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Right, I'm ready to go.
Go for it. Cheers.
Many thanks for letting me speak today. I've had to cut short a vacation to appear here, but I also recognise the exception and the accommodations that Salford Council has made for me today. I am, however, angry that this is back already to panel. It shows a total lack of respect to the residents of Barton and Winton. Let me be clear, it is the applicant that has asked for this, not our officers, who have been all times accommodating. This will be decided today after many years of dispute. I will not be asking for more time. Once again, the applicant has suggested that it's not been in use for years, and as I said last time, there is sufficient evidence to prove that is not the case. The report accepts there is, in fact, at least one viable option, but Punch don't care. The report says the other options have no evidence, but there has been no time given to gather that evidence, but Punch don't care. Punch accept there is other uses, but they don't care. But you should care, because it's now clear that UDP, R1 and GS17 have not been satisfied. Therefore, it makes it really easy for members. It should be refused. But wait, hang on. The officers have recommended approve. Why is that? It's because, like a petulant child, when presented with options, they said, we won't sell.
Councillor Mullen, could we just temper down the petulant child thing, please? Would you please reconsider those words?
Sorry, it's just a comparison. It is just to draw an analogy to petulant children, or are you making? I'm happy to withdraw those.
I would appreciate that, Councillor Mullen. I really would appreciate that. Thank you. Please continue, Councillor Mullen.
Okay. So when presented with all the options, they say, we won't sell. We won't sell for any community use, gardens for veterans, orchards, we don't care, we won't sell. Allotments, we don't care, we won't sell. Can we have time to look at other options? We don't care, we won't sell, just get it back to panel. So the officers are now forced to say to you, without a willing seller, we should approve. But I say we should not. We should not pander to this kind of technique because they are a willing seller. They have tried to sell this site before, but I know others have walked away. I cannot say how many have been entertained thus far, but I know at least one for housing, and I can only guess and speculate that they came to the same conclusions as me, that this is a recreational plot and it does have further use and is thus not viable. So they are a willing seller. What we're arguing about today is price. This site is worth 150,000. The officers agree that's the price. Punch sort of agree that's the compensation price, but it's only worth more than that if you give permission today. I've already asked you to consider refusal, and Punch should accept the value of the land and just move on. The consequences of an approve today sets a dangerous precedent. It will mean anyone with a golf course, rugby club or cricket club can fence it off, shoo off the public, and then the value of, say, 1 million plot could be escalated to 30 millions or even more. They can then say to the council, here is $1 million, go and buy a new golf course, go and buy a new cricket club. They too can be stubborn and play the unwilling seller card. And we would not be able to refuse as we have set a precedent today. Another reason to refuse, this little site can open a floodgate. So in summary, they have not satisfied the policy, they are a willing seller, we're arguing about price. So I will say no more on this and say thank you to the panel for listening to me today.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Thanks so much. Councillor, we'll need to eject you as per council policy from this part of the meeting now, but you can watch the deliberation and the decision via the live stream on the council website. Is that okay?
That's fine. I understood that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I have no other ward members who are registered to speak. Just before I bring you guys in, I do recall from the previous meeting that we had that we did have a good conversation about the principle of housing on this site, and we didn't come to any negative decision about that. Rather, what we wanted to do, we wanted to exhaust the understanding that this site is surplus to requirements. We did also ask that make sure that the quantum of monies that was to be in compensation for the loss of any recreational space, if it was approved, is in line with the guidance, and I believe that's from Sports England, and that is the case. So, really, members, I don't want to curtail the debate. You know my type of chairship, but we should be focusing on it if the land is surplus or not, because there was no voices previously to knock the principle of housing here. So, given that the city's housing need and that the situation with the MPPF and our local planning policies, but then again, we do need to satisfy ourselves it is surplus to requirements. So, members, is there anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. Just for clarification for me there, just want to make a comment as well. Given COVID and everybody's been stuck indoors, I think the situation's really very different now. I run a support group actually locally, and the bowling green there, I'm not associated with it, but I am aware it's inundated with new members, and I just think we're in a climate where it's changing. People want to get outdoors, and you know, where they may have gone to the many pubs we had, you know, I think more and more people are becoming aware of how to be healthier, how to get outside, and I think it's of value.
But, you know, recreational spaces of value, and that is recognised throughout the report, and we need to give that the appropriate weight, and that's where I am. And yeah, this is no doubt this is going to be a hard decision to make. I mean, the city needs family housing. This particular neighbourhood here has got a housing need. There's no doubt about that. If you look across the city, there's predominantly 2 wards that take all the housing. We need to get smaller sites like this to deliver housing in other parts of wards where there may not be the land to deliver the housing. So there is definitely a housing need, but there's also a recreational need. Is this likely to come back into play as a recreational space? It hasn't. From my understanding, from the reports. Mr. Ketley, when was this recognised as a fully active recreational space? What was the previous year?
Is the question when did it first appear in council policy documents as a designated space?
When were we last aware that it was open access for recreational use? Because
I believe it's not been used, or the applicant has indicated that it's not been maintained and formally used by registered clubs for almost a decade now, I believe.
Yeah, and what ornaments does the city have to open those doors?
Well, the site is obviously within private ownership, so our powers to bring that kind of site under public control would be limited to a compulsory purchase order process, but obviously that brings around costs and it's a fairly lengthy process.
Yeah,
and would certainly not be a decision that you know the planning team would be making.
Yes. Is it okay for me, Councillor Hamilton? Because I feel.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think I remember from last time that the access to that area was shut to the public as well anyway. So I do remember that. Thanks, Chair.
That is a great shame, you know, because, Councillor McCusker.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify one thing for the resident who spoke against, and then I've got a question. So the area that you were talking about an alternative use for, the area it's called Dales Brow, with Dales Brow and Folly Lane. So that's a council-owned piece of land that we've got environmental agency funding in order to create a sustainable urban drainage system to take the water which is regularly pooling on that corner of Dales Brow. So just to explain what that is.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a question about the allotments really. On page 142 at the top, the officer says that it's considered the site would not be able to accommodate the minimum number of plots and ancillary facilities required to sustain it as allotments. But the following paragraph says, and I think this is the point that Councillor Mullen was making, with careful design and a willing landowner, the provision of new allotments could be accommodated, and therefore the site cannot be considered surplus to all recreation uses. However, he goes on to make those points. I'm just not clear how those two statements go with each other. If you just get some clarification back.
Absolutely, I would really appreciate it too. Mr. Ketley, did you hear Councillor McCusker there? I couldn't put it more succinctly than Councillor McCusker did, so.
I did, thank you, yes. I think it would perhaps be more relevant to refer to page 130, which I think is the more updated text following the officer's further review, which I think indicates that 10 sort of half-sized plots could be accommodated on the application site. That's sort of following further detailed review of whether the ancillary facilities like toilets and shelters could also sort of be accommodated within the site, and then it kind of follows on to your with careful design and a willing landowner, the provision of allotments could be accommodated. So I think yes, there's probably a discrepancy there, but that's because there's been further review by officers following the original panel meeting, and that is hopefully clarified in the update to the report on page 130.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, I realise it's a difficult decision to make. Councillor Mull's obviously clearly passionate and reflecting the concerns of his residents. However, without a willing landowner, that final option around allotments it is no longer feasible. We're in desperate need of family housing. Unfortunately, neither of the two panel members from the Conservative Party are at present today. That's something they stress time and time again whenever we look at any application for anything that's not family housing. In those circumstances, with no viable prospect, the land will just sit there basically doing nothing. We've got the need for family housing, so therefore I move that we go with the recommendation of the officers.
Thank you, Councillor McCusker. Is there a seconder to that, anybody? Councillor Cusack.
Thanks, Chair. Reluctantly, I have to say, I agree entirely with Councillor McCusker. I don't think there's any reasonable assumption that this land will be put into any recreational use by anybody other than the council. The council would have to acquire it, as we've heard, and that would cost. We can't acquire it. We don't have the money. We can't CPO it. I can't see any pragmatic alternative. And I think in this case, unless we want to allow the land to remain derelict, as Councillor McCusker says, I don't see any alternative to approving this application, given that I understand the passion of the local councillors and some of the local residents. I can't see their desires for this land ever coming to fruition, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Yeah, it's one of the made some pretty tough decisions as a panel over the years. But this one's hard because it is a piece of recreational space, but we do need that housing, and the likelihood of it actually coming back into usage is very, very slim and slight. And so, is there any motions contrary to the officer's recommendation, members? Typical on this. Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval. All members in favour, please show. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much. Okay, moving straight on, members, to item 5F, which Mr. Stevenson, I believe you are presenting officer. Members, it's page 159 to 164. It's page 10 of your amendment sheet. And Mr. Stevenson, is that your front header sheet? Could you go forward back?
It is, Chair, hopefully.
Yeah, hold on, let's just check it
for you.
on all screens. Oh, no. Oh, yep, I think we're there. Are we getting a nod from Councillor Womsham? Oh, we got a nod from Councillor Womsham. Don't know we get one of them. So, then we get a shake of the head. So, well, just personally to me anyway, I'm sure about that. Okay, Mr. Stevenson, I can hear you. You're a bit faint, so would you like to shout at me a bit more? And you have the floor. Thank you.
No problem, Chair, I'll do my best. This application relates to 131 Barton Lane, and as you'll see from this header slide, it's for a change of use from a dwelling to a 5-bedroomed house in multiple occupation. So this is the application site here. It forms one half of a semi-detached property. The site itself is located approximately 700 metres from Eccles Centre, which is to the east along Barton Lane here. To the rear of the site, members may be aware of the New Haven residential development being built out by Countryside. You'll also pick up from this slide that the residential nature of the surrounding area. So this is just a view of the property looking across Barton Lane. It's this property here with the red marker on it. It's the new development in the rear there. And this is looking from the rear of the site, so it's this property here with a rather substantial rear yard area. These are the existing floor plans for the site. You'll see that it's a 4-bedroomed property with the ground floor split across a lounge, sitting room, dining room and kitchen space. These are the proposed floor plans. You'll see that there would be a bedroom or 2 bedrooms at ground floor, one at the front served by the bay window here, one immediately behind that served by a large window here. There would then be communal amenity space within the property at the rear, and up on the first floor there'd be a bedroom to the front served by 2 windows, again a bedroom behind that served by this window here, and a 5th bedroom served by this window in the outrigger. There are no physical changes to the building itself. This is entirely about a change of use of the building. And members will be aware that one of the key considerations is whether the conversion of such a property would result in an over-concentration in the area of such uses. This slide shows the mandatory houses in multiple occupation that we're aware of in the area, which make up a relatively small proportion of the properties, and therefore we don't consider it would result in an over-concentration. Just in terms of objections, we've now received 9, which includes the one from Councillor Mullen. Just showing on this slide, the red triangles are the location of those people who've objected. So the immediate neighbours haven't raised concerns, and the nearest 5 who've objected are shown on this slide with some in the wider vicinity. So panel members, the application is recommended for approval. It's considered that there are a variety of dwelling types in the area, and this would contribute towards that mix and help meet the needs of those people requiring lower cost accommodation in the city. You'll see from the report that based on car ownership levels for this type of accommodation, it's expected that there would be 1 or 2 cars from this, which is not dissimilar to the lawful use of the property as a 4-bedroomed house, and therefore there will be no significant impact at all on highway function. And also because the rear yard is quite a substantial size, that's deemed suitable to accommodate for bike storage and bin storage for the residents. And it's recommended for approval, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. I don't have any objectors who are registered to speak. I've got Mr Graham from the applicant's agents team. Are you wishing to speak? Miss Graham, you have 10 minutes. Do you need 10 minutes, Miss Graham?
No.
Oh, no. 5 minutes suffice?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay, I'll give you a shout at 4. And if you do go over, don't worry, it's okay.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
Over to yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name's Jo Graham. I'm the applicant. I haven't prepared a script, but I have a few notes, more to acknowledge the objections and to put it in the public domain that I recognise them and we own, I guess we own the objections. My partner and I own the property. Our intention, if we get approval, is to convert it. It will be a high-end conversion. We're very interested in our neighbours. We've got to know them since we've bought the property. And we want to look after them as much as look after the house. So we have an arrangement with the person that lives to the adjoining property. She's going to do the domestics for us when we get up and running. And our neighbour to the other side of us, we've done a few jobs for him around the place as well to help out. So I wanted to put it out there that we are interested in supporting the neighbourhood. And then I thought about if I was to have an HMO on my street, what would I be concerned about? And there was an objection about the tenants and the suitability of the tenants. And I wanted to acknowledge that we manage the properties ourselves. My partner and I have a small portfolio. We don't employ agents. They don't do as good a job as we can do. So we interview all of the tenants. They will be working. They will most likely be younger, but ultimately we have sensible tenants. This is not a party house. This is not people that are going to wreck the place, because we want to have a nice house as well. So we make a special effort to make sure that we look after it. And because we've got to know our neighbours, we will be talking to them as well to make sure that they're happy with how the house is being run. And that's it. I don't need to repeat anything else that's in the planning application that's been said. There was a point around a cycle store. More than happy to put one in. There's also a garage to the rear of the property, which could be used, but if you would prefer a cycle store, then of course we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Graham. I don't know who replied, but that was most refreshing. That's all I can add. Thank you. Okay, there's no ward members wishing to speak. I prefer cycle store members. No problem. Members, you've heard straight from the agent there. Councillor McCusker?
Yeah, I think we had the discussion last time about taking a broad brush approach to HMOs even, and the importance really of looking at each one as it's presented to us. Obviously, this is a 4-bedroom, you know, it's quite a substantial property. Notice from the design, but there's showers for each of the bedrooms, and then the single shared kitchen dining area. Obviously, you can see from the red triangles on the map of oppositions that this particular developer has apparently won over the residents around the proposed HMO. It looks like a good design to me. You know, it's not trying to over-egg what's there in terms of cramming people in. It sounds like there's going to be good management with local eyes on it that can feed back to the developer themselves. So I'd like to propose that we accept it, Chair.
Councillor Cusack, sorry, sometimes I have a...
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal. I think it's worth making the point that as a local authority, we should not be against HMOs in principle. I think HMOs are a critically important part of the housing provision in Salford, and particularly where we need to provide affordable living space for people. I think it's incumbent on us as a planning authority to approve HMOs that are appropriate, that have got the right design, are in the right place and can be properly managed. Although I do accept that the management is a separate issue from the principle of the use of the building, and that principle of the use of the building can be transferred through sale at some stage in the future to another owner. So I largely see that as irrelevant in terms of this planning application. However, I think it's the right property. I think the area can absorb it, and I think we have a responsibility as a local authority to provide for people who need this kind of accommodation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. I wish I could put together such a well-rounded speech. So thank you. Appreciate that. That's very gracious of you. Members, it's been moved and seconded for approval. Are there any motions against the recommendation? We have a bag store. Is that okay? Did I see some nods? Oh, fabulous. Okay, all in favour of the approval, please show. Anyone against? No. And any abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much, Ms Graham. Very refreshing, I said. Thank you. Okay, moving straight on to item 5G, members, which is on pages 165 to 171 of the main agenda, and it's not on your amendment sheet. Mr Ketley, you're the presenting officer. Unfortunately, I was reading my piece of paper, so I didn't see your screen come up. So could you go forward a slide and back a slide, please?
Of course.
Yep, I think we could even get a nod from Councillor Hamilton on that one. Yep, I can hear you as well, Mr Ketley. Over to you, good self.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks planning permission to change the use of 40 Kennedy Road, which is in the ward of Weaston Seedley, from a use class C3 dwelling house with 3 bedrooms into a 5-bed, 5-person house of multiple occupation, together with a single-storey rear extension. So the application property is a mid-terrace dwelling located on the eastern side of Kennedy Road, within a very much a residential part of the city. The M602 is located 300 metres to the south, whilst Buell Hill Park is a 400-metre walk away to the north. Just some pictures of the property's frontage, marked by the magenta arrows. So planning permission is sought to convert the existing 3-bed dwelling into a 5-bed, 5-person HMO, which will be facilitated by the erection of a single-storey rear extension. The accommodation will be split across 2 floors with a communal kitchen diner and 2 bedrooms provided at ground floor level. This is the first floor, which will provide a further 3 bedrooms. All of the rooms are conventionally shaped with adequate circulation routes and space for furniture. The size of the rooms complies with the council standards for an HMO of this size. These are the proposed elevations, showing the proposed rear extension, which you can see at the back here. And then again here, the extension is considered to have an acceptable impact on neighbouring residential amenity. Sufficient space will be retained within the rear yard for storage of refuse bins away from the street scene. This plan shows that there are very few existing HMOs on Kennedy Road, with the application site being marked by a magenta star there. One HMO that's not yet shown on this map was consented in March 2020 at 43 Kennedy Road. Officers are satisfied that the scheme would not lead to an over-concentration of HMOs in this particular part of the city or impact on the overall mix of dwellings in the area. 8 letters of objection, including representation from Councillor Wade, have been received in response to the application, with the principal concerns raised by residents summarised on page 167 of your agenda packs. No objections have been raised by consultees, including the Local Highways Authority. Conditions have been recommended to secure obscure glazing to a secondary bedroom window on the side of the property and to ensure that the HMO is not occupied by more than 5 residents. Overall, it's considered that the proposal will make a positive contribution towards meeting the housing needs of those requiring lower cost accommodation, and the application is therefore recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ketley. I do have an objector who's present, Mr. Hall. Are you speaking, Mr. Hall? Please come forward. Mr. Hall, you do have 10 minutes as a round begin. Do you need 10 minutes or?
I don't. Thank you very much. I don't anticipate I will need the full 10 minutes.
No problem. Well, I'll give you a shout at 4 minutes, but if you roll over, you roll over. Is that okay?
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, if you could just tell us where you reside before you start speaking, it just helps members of the panel with the context of your submission. That's all it is. Whenever you're ready, over to yourself.
Thank you. As you know, my name is Philip Hall. I'm actually a neighbour to Kennedy Road, to 40 Kennedy Road. I'm a direct neighbour at 38. Just by way of background, I've lived at the property since November 2007, initially as an owner, a part owner, and thereafter I sold my share of the property and have lived there ever since as a tenant. So I don't have any financial skin in the game. I do have a community interest for Weaster, and particularly Kennedy Road. I won't labour the point, but you will of course be aware that it's an Article 4 area. It's already been mentioned today that HMOs have to be in areas where they create a balanced community, and that there can't be an unacceptable concentration of HMOs in a particular area. You've seen the map that was put up, and I believe it showed 1 HMO on Kennedy Road. Well, I respectfully don't think that's correct. And I say that because I have an email which is from Salford Council. It's dated the 16th of June of this year. It's a Freedom of Information request, and I specifically asked how many HMOs there were on Kennedy Road, M5, 5FT. Of course, the council can only tell me how many are licensed, and the response was, there is one mandatory HMO, and I can forward you the email, these are the council's own figures, one mandatory HMO and 7 selective licensed HMOs. So respectfully, that map that was put up cannot be right if those figures, council's own figures, are right. In addition to that, the map did not take into account 2 HMO licenses that have recently been granted March and May of this year on New Cross Street. Now, I don't know if you know New Cross Street, but Kennedy Road, New Cross Street, goes adjacent to it. It's not very big, it's about 100 or so metres long, and in March and May of this year, 2 new planning permissions have been granted at number 17 and number 7 for a 6 and a 5-bed HMO. Those weren't on the map either. Incidentally, the applicant in those applications is the same applicant for this application, Mr. Lewis. And I'm not seeking to make any personal remarks, I don't know the gentleman, but he's also the applicant of number 43 Kennedy Road, which has also been granted an application recently. So drawing those things together, if those figures are right, there are 8 HMO licenses on Kennedy Road at the moment. This will be the 9th, and then if we take into account the 2 others on New Cross Street, that's 11 HMOs, all within metres of each other. If I stepped out of my front door, I could walk to the end of Kennedy Road within about a minute and a half. I could get to the end of New Cross Street in about 30 seconds. That's 11 HMOs. And so I go back to the earlier point that that can't be a balanced community under Article 4. The issue is that it's taking more housing stock away from local families. It's already been, I've already heard today one councillor refer to a need for family housing stock. Well, this is taking another one out of the stock. And the way that these properties are put together makes it very unattractive for a family to want to go and buy in, to then have to convert it back into a family property. And so, actually, I do submit that there is an over-concentration of HMOs already in the area, too many on Kennedy Road, and there isn't a need for a further one. Finally, also referred to in the report was car parking. The author of the report refers to acceptable levels of car parking. Well, I'm afraid that's not my lived reality of living on Kennedy Road. If you drive down there in the day, you could quite happily park on the street. If you go down there at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you may well struggle. And if you add another 4 or 5 cars from number 40, you're really going to struggle. And so the thrust of my submission is that we don't need another HMO in the area. Unless you have any questions, I don't think I can usefully add anything more.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I normally sum up back to the person who speaks, but you've summed up yourself most elegantly there. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Councillor Wade, Luana's just going to clean down the table in the chair and we'll bring your good self over. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair.
I tell you, Councillor Wade, your 5 minutes whenever you're ready, Councillor Wade. Over to you.
Sorry?
Your 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Right, okay.
No problem.
I'm here on behalf of residents of Weaston Seedley, a ward that has seen in excess of 460% increase in conversion of family homes into HMOs over the past few years. Most of those are set in small areas where there is a high concentration of HMOs. Kennedy Road is in such an area. This is a small area bounded by Tootle Drive, Tootle Road, Weast Lane, and New Cross Street. It also includes Bath Road and Lords Avenue. Most of the a lot of the properties in this area are privately rented properties where families bring up their children and are quite static. But the HMOs have a very highly transitant population. All the roads I've mentioned in that area have a good number of HMOs on them, and I would support what the previous speaker said, that there are far more HMOs in that area than it is on that map. Developers have moved into this area and converted all the larger terraced houses on East Lane. They've also converted all the vacant shops on Tootle Drive. All have become HMOs. So they're now after the smaller family homes, wanting to extend, use cellars, converting them to bedrooms, converting lofts, and with such a high concentration, it seems a lot to expect residents to put up with the noise, dirt and disruption of these building projects. And residents know from experience that having a conversion isn't the beginning, isn't the end of it once the conversion's done. They know that they'll be refurbished, there'll be builders there to do repairs, that tenants will move out, and whatever property they leave behind will just be dumped on the street. With the rise in HMOs in the area, there's also been a rise in crime and antisocial behaviour. We've also had significant problems with litter, fly tipping, and tenants dumping rubbish on the streets. We've had several fines in the area where tenants from HMOs have preferred to put their rubbish out in bags rather than use the bins, if bins are provided, because not all landlords provide sufficient bins for the residents. The problems with parking have also increased. These are terraced houses, there's no off-road parking. You put a 6-bedroom HMO in, with possibly 5 or 6 cars, and where do they go? And it's caused a lot of friction between neighbours. The transient populations that rent and tenant HMOs do not invest in the area. They're not interested in the long-term cohesion of the area. Long-term tenants tell me how they've tried to engage with them, to get them to understand how to recycle their waste, to park responsibly, all of these sorts of things. It all has limited success, because even if you do manage to convince somebody, they're here today and gone tomorrow, and then you've got somebody else, and you've got to start all over again. The increased development of HMOs is really changing the character of this small area. There's been a real negative impact on the appearance of the area, and it has become an area of decline. I speak to residents. They care deeply about their neighbourhood, and they're telling me that what is the good of keeping my home well looked after, well maintained, when there's that dump of an HMO further down the road.
You have a minute left, Councillor Ward. Is that okay?
Sorry?
You have a minute left.
So I'm speaking on behalf of residents who are proud of their neighbourhood and their city, but feel let down by a council that allows HMOs to flourish in the area, and feel that they have no choice but to move away. And that adds further instability to the area. There is now an over-concentration of HMOs in this area, and the effect has been to slowly erode what was a pleasant neighbourhood. It was a desirable area for people to bring up their families. It's now becoming an area of a transigent population who make no investment in the neighbourhood, or their community, or in their city. And every house converted to an HMO is a house lost to a Salford family. So I know it's a difficult ask, but I'm asking the panel today to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, I have no other ward councillors who are registered to speak. Members, just before I open up to you good selves, Mr. Ketley, Mr. Hall, the resident, he did mention that the map that you put up. And my understanding that was data of the mandatory HMOs, and I believe Mr. Hall was referencing the selective HMOs, of which those numbers were prior to the Article 4 change. I know that's getting a bit technical now with the Article 4 change. So could we just explain to the panel and for all those who are watching and present what the Article 4 change was and what that brought about, and then I'll bring Mr. Shuttleworth in to understand how that data is now being collected after that and what's happening going forward. Mr. Ketley.
No problem. So the Article 4 direction that was brought in effectively removed the ability for dwelling houses to change their, or single family dwelling houses to change their use to small HMOs without needing planning permission. So following the Article 4 direction, planning permission will be required for that change of use. The map that you will have seen earlier, which I can bring up now, that shows the mandatory HMOs in the area and additional HMO licences. Now, what it doesn't show is the other selective landlord licences, as that doesn't distinguish between the selective HMO, selective landlord licence, you should say, are all rental properties, but it doesn't distinguish between those properties that are rented by a single family and those which have been functioning as HMOs since prior to the Article 4 direction coming in. Hence why it's more accurate to say for certain which properties are HMOs, and that's the slide that's been presented there.
That's fine, because I don't believe for a moment anyone was suggesting that any data was being hid. It's just being able to represent the data accurately and having the confidence of the numbers that you can see that they are actually HMOs in this question. I understand the difficulty there. So yes, so I do appreciate Mr. Hall bringing it forward, and I do appreciate your explanation. Yeah, there is an element of unknown there. So yeah, but there's definitely evidence been put before the panel today that there are more HMOs going on and being in situ than what is shown there, but without that deep dive into that data, you really wouldn't be able to see it. I get that. Mr. Shortworth, can I bring your good self in about how that data, we are going to do that deep dive in the future and hopefully get a much more accurate picture of our HMO situation in our neighbourhoods.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can't really take credit for the deep dive, but colleagues in the Council's sort of housing and licensing teams are, because now we've introduced selective licensing. Oh, sorry, Chair. Unaccustomed as I am to microphone speak. That we are now that the entire city is covered by selective licensing, which is coming into effect, I think, in October. So we're hoping to have much more detailed information about the location of rental properties and HMOs from that point. As the officer and representative and people have pointed out, there is a bit of a lack of on-the-ground detailed information about what are there in place of small HMOs, particularly those that predate the introduction of the Article 4 direction. So the evidence provided by the officers in the report, it gives them a basis, but it obviously is quite appropriate for the panel also to take account of local representations too, I think.
I think so in this case, those local representations really do help. Councillor Cusack, did I see your hand go up? And then did anyone else's hand go up? And Councillor McCuskey. Councillor Cusack and Councillor McCuskey.
Thanks, Chair. I echo some of the points that Councillor Wade made, and in fact, after a walk around the area last week with Councillor Wade and the City Mayor, it appears to the slightly untutored and external eye that there are more HMOs on Kennedy Road rather than are indicated here. My query, though, doesn't actually relate to the density in this case. The report that we had in front of us didn't show the actual floor layouts and the plans of the HMO. I've looked at the size of the rooms and they seem to me to be extremely small. there seems to be very, very limited storage space. I do recall that we've looked at HMOs on the basis of the individual design of the conversion of the building in the past. It strikes me that we are, in this case, trying to fit the proverbial quart into the proverbial pipe pot and literally cram people into what is essentially a relatively small terraced house. I wonder if the officer could put the floor plans up on the screen again for us to have another look.
By all means. Would you just go through it again, Mr. Gatley, quite quickly?
No problem. So this is the ground floor plan. As you can see, there are 2 bedrooms and a communal kitchen dining room. The standards state that where there isn't a living room in addition to a kitchen dining area, bedrooms should achieve a minimum of 10 square metres, not including any ensuite facilities. That standard has been achieved in this instance. Standards also indicate that the combined kitchen and dining area for a property of this size should be a minimum of 11.5 square metres. And again, that's been achieved here with the kitchen dining area being 16 square metres in size. I will just show you the first floor plan just for completeness. So all of the bedrooms have ensuite facilities with the exception of bedroom 5 at the back here, but there is a kind of a separate shower room on the ground floor as well.
Are you coming back, Councillor McCusker? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cusack, I do apologise.
He's over there, Chair.
I do apologise, I am sorry.
Yes, Chair. I recognise that the rooms are above the minimum standard, but it has to be said that they are only just above the minimum standard, and it's as though somebody is still saying, how much can I cram into this property? And I actually think it is an overdevelopment of the property. I think the developer is trying to cram far too much in, and as a result of that observation, and in particular there being a room with no ensuite facilities and people having to use facilities on another floor and go past where other residents are living, I cannot support this application, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Unlike you good people, I can't eat the biscuits at half time, so I'm approaching my lunchtime and I'm getting hungry, so I do apologise, Councillor Cusack. Councillor McCusker.
Yeah, it's just going back to Councillor Wade's concerns and the residents who spoke earlier, and the fact that we don't seem to have sufficient data to make a judgment about whether there is an over concentration. I was going to, if it's possible, from council tax records or anything that would indicate, could we defer decision on this until we had the best information that we can about the over concentration within Kennedy and New Cross Street, which is right next to it.
I've got no objections to that. To try and I have no objections to that because to get a better picture, it's certainly a material consideration. Is over concentration. It's not against officers' recommendation. So if there's a seconder for the deferral to now we just get the words right here to deep dive to can you finish off the sentence for me? To deep dive to evaluate the real numbers of HMOs.
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure that when we're making a decision that we're making it on sound the best information that we can about the concentration of HMOs within Kennedy Road and New Cross Street.
I'm sure the officers are presenting them as the best information they can, but if we want them to go and sort through what is the selective licences to get to a point where they could, with more, what would you say, yeah, further in-house, but with more confidence that those properties from that are identified as HMOs or not. So we could have more confidence from them that because they've got a set of data and they're not sure what's what within it. Councillor Birch, I really am enjoying this conversation.
Thank you, Chair. The gentleman who objected, he said he received an email from the council, so
yeah.
It looks like the information is somewhere there and
it's just what's inside that information. So that information could be a house just in private rental, or it could be a HMO, or it's just been, you see, or it could be.
HMO can be in private.
It could be a hotel or a guest house. Because this Article 4 has scraped lots of different usages, but what actually that usage is within that Article 4 is unknown. It could move overnight within it, if you know what I'm saying, because that's permitted development, and as you've seen with the latest government change of development, it seems to be all and sundry. So, okay, I'm happy to go to a vote for deferral with a more deep dive into the Article 4 information that we have to see if we can sift out the actual on-street situation of those HMOs, which is pertinent to this application. All in favour of that? Please show. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The application has been deferred for now, so we can do that deep dive. Is that okay? Appreciate your attendance today. Thank you so much. Okay. Councillor Dawson, I just need to move on to the next item.
Just for clarification. Been referred to obviously as the density of the room layout and the facility.
Yeah.
So if we come back with this under deferment, it's not that we've accepted.
Well, I didn't hear anything positive on that front. So I've got no intention of trying to curtail the debate, and as you know, I never try to do that. But I just tried to help steer the panel into a place where they to start the conversation again from where they left it off. That's all I tried to do. This will start off with the full floor again, because there was a full conversation about all the amenities.
We've agreed everything.
I absolutely. Is that okay? It's just with previous applications, we've left the conversation at a certain point, and we're going to come back to it and carry on that. We just try and save time and stay pertinent. Okay. I've announced what the determination of that was. We're on to item 6, members. Are you happy to note the delegated reports?
Noted.
No problem. Planning appeals, are you happy to note the planning appeals? No problem. I'm aware it's 9 minutes to 1. There is an enforcement report. We do like to do this justice, so a good 15 minutes for this, and then we will break. Is that okay? And hopefully there's a bit of coffee left and a bit of food, and then we do have some briefings afterwards. Councillor Hamilton, there's no decisions. This is just for notes. So yeah, you can do, but please not everyone leave. Okay, Mr. Stevenson, Mr. Best, are you presenting the enforcement report? Mr. Councillor McCusker,
hopefully you can hear.
Go round next time. I'll be most grateful.
Me, Chair.
Yep. Can we maximise that screen in some way?
You can see my report on screen.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Over to yourself.
Yeah, so this is set out in the actual papers before members, but just to talk through some of the data that we've got available on enforcement cases. Mr. Best is on leave, that's why I'm standing in for him today. So this first slide sets out the number of enforcement cases that we've received since the 1st of April this year. You can see that we receive in the region of 25 to 30 cases per month. That typically is the run rate we tend to experience. You can see what categories these enforcement cases fall within. So perhaps if you look at the pie chart at the bottom there, you can see that 57% of cases we've received so far this year relate to people claiming that something has taken place without planning permission. 19% relate to cases where people consider there to have been a breach of some form of planning permission that's already been granted. 16% relate to other breaches. That, in the main, seems to be untidy land claims that we have powers under Section 215 of the Planning Act to deal with in certain instances. And the remaining few there relate to advertisements, trees, advertisements and trees. I've shown on the bottom there how those split across the wards. We still need to update the wards. That will come forward at some point in the future. And again, just a summary in terms of how that works in terms of the finite numbers. So 59 cases is adds up to 57% of the cases. In terms of the number of cases that we've closed in that same period, you can see that what goes out is comparable to what comes in. So